died.
She was convinced she wasn't the robber's only victim.
He has done this many times, I believe, and is pretty professional. He would need to know access points and people's movements. So I would guess he's been doing surveillance on the property and surrounding areas for a while. The armed robber was all masked up and balaclavaed up. But what I did take note of is when he did say things to me, that there wasn't a foreign accent there.
Open it! Open the garage!
The thief stole almost £1.5 million worth of valuables. Detectives pieced together CCTV of the thief's escape and were able to map the journey he then took on the train.
He got the 5:38 p.m. from Hildenbroek train station. He gets off the train at Tunbridge train station, where he then gets on the next train. He gets off at Marden train station, and he has then cycled, leaving Marden train station at 6:02 p.m.
They were then able to build up a profile of the armed robber.
He is a white male, exceptionally large build. A distinctive feature is his muscular arms. He had trainers on with very distinctive red soles. It was a warm, hot, sunny day, and the clothing that the offender was wearing, I think, would have stood out to his fellow passengers as being unusual. What's striking about this case is that he appears to have a loss of control. There was no need for him to be so violent towards her. This contrasts with how meticulous and careful his planning is. I won't forget the first time I watched the CCTV. Her screams will remain with me, and I'm determined to try and catch this man.
You can't just forget about it. You think about it every day. You're wary of people. You suspect everybody now. I did not see the reason why he had to slit my head open. Maybe that's a sadistic streak he's got in him. But yeah, a complete coward.
I'm now joined by Detective Inspector Maxine Harris from the Kent and Essex Serious Crime Directorate. Maxine, this must have been an absolutely terrifying ordeal for the victim there. Can you just remind us of those key points of when and where this occurred?
Yeah, this was an aggravated burglary that happened in Sevenoaks in Kent, happened near to Wilderness Golf Course between 3:55 p.m. and 4:35 p.m. on Friday, the 21st of June 2024.
And you got a pretty good overview that you managed to piece together of the suspect's movements both before and after the event.
That's right. We know that he starts his day in Staplehurst. He's on a pedal cycle. He's cycling on Marden Road, and he's taken the train from Staplehurst train station to Sevenoaks train station and then cycled to the scene.
And then after the event, he's used the same sort of method to travel back, hasn't he? And we can see here his movements again on a pedal cycle and using the rail network.
He has cycled along Park Lane, Sevenoaks. He's taken the train from Hildenbroek train station at 5:38 p.m. He has got off that train at Tunbridge, changed train, and then got off a different train at 6 p.m. at Marden train station. And our last sighting of him is at 6:14 p.m. on the same road as the first sighting, only half a mile away.
How would you describe the suspect?
He is an exceptionally large build male. He's got very muscular arms. He was wearing distinctive red-soled trainers, and he's got thin layered clothing that he's layered up with a beige cap, and he was wearing a face mask on the train. He sought to disguise his identity by changing and putting a high-vis jacket on and taking it off.
OK, it was a very hot day. It's worth reminding viewers that he may well have stood out just because of what he was clothing at the time. He also had a bag on him, didn't he, at the time? And you've got a similar one here in the studio. We can see that. How would you describe the bag?
So we think it's from a make called Timbuktu. It's a messenger-style bag. Also with the bag was a bicycle. He was using a road bike. That road bike is from the late 90s, early 2000s. It was set up for someone who knew about cycling, and in particular, quite distinctive were some aero bars that are at the front going off the handlebars.
So that was a site with the type of bars where the rider would be leant over on the bars, and their hands would be in a forward position on top. You often see them with the higher-end road bikes, but it could suggest that the person knows a thing or two about cycling.
It could do, and it is a hypothesis because he is moving quite quickly. We know that from where we've viewed the CCTV footage.
We've also got the audio clip that we can actually hear the suspect's voice. Now, we're going to play that now.
Open it. Open the garage. Open the garage.
That's the key at the garage.
Open the garage.
I'm opening it.
Open it.
I'm opening it.
I mean, it is chilling hearing those words, but it is so important, and you wanted to play this today because someone might recognise that voice or clues as to where that voice is from. You've actually had a linguistic expert analyse that footage. What have they concluded?
Yeah, so what the linguistic expert tells us is that his voice is likely from the more prosperous areas of the southern counties. We have a QR code where people can listen to that voice. I think they can access it from your website. I would ask the public to listen to it, see if they recognise those mannerisms.
Yeah, because it's really important we identify who this is. How can our viewers help you today?
What I need is for someone to tell me this man's name. I recognise that they might be too frightened, so they can give that anonymously through Crime Stoppers, who are offering a £10,000 reward for any information that leads to his conviction.
Thank you, Maxine. You can contact Crime Stoppers on the dedicated telephone number below, or contact us if you have any information.
I'm with PC Natalie Booler from South Yorkshire Police now for our next appeal. Good to have you with us in the studio, Natalie. Tell us more about this case.
Good morning. This is a single vehicle fatal collision that occurred in October last year. A vehicle was driving at speed through Gleadless Town End when it struck a pedestrian in the carriageway. Sadly, victim, 42-year-old Damien Votalevic, died at the scene, having sustained catastrophic injuries.
And Natalie, what's really shocking about this is the fact that the driver didn't even stop.
No, he didn't. He left Damien in the road.
Well, let's talk through the details of exactly where and when this happened. We've got a map that we can take a look at. Just talk us through this.
OK, so the collision occurred on the 24th of October at 8:27 p.m. last year. And it happened on Ridgeway Road. This is a multi-carriageway road and it's governed by a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, and the area is known locally as Gleadless Town End. We know that prior to the collision, a number of vehicles passed through that junction, and we also know that the offending vehicle was travelling at speed through this junction when he struck the pedestrian.
As you say, after the collision, the driver continued. We've got another map to actually illustrate where he went. Just talk us through what we're seeing here.
OK, so following the collision, the vehicle has continued from Gleadless Town End along Ridgeway Road, turning right onto Hollins End Road. And it's continued its journey towards Intake, along Hollybank Road, and then it's made its way up Normanton Hill and heading towards Richmond. And then as it's travelled along Richmond Road, it's turned left onto Richmond Hall Road, where we know it's travelled through the estate, and the last sighting of the vehicle is on Spinkhill Avenue.
We've actually got some CCTV footage, haven't we, of the driver in question going incredibly fast, Natalie.
Yeah, so as you can see from the footage, the vehicle is travelling significantly faster than other vehicles that are on the carriageway. And following the collision, the damage that was sustained by that vehicle would have been easy to spot.
Well, you urgently want to locate the vehicle. Tell us a bit more about it.
Okay. So inquiries have led us to believe that this vehicle is either being stored or hidden following the collision. We know that it's a black Volkswagen Golf, a 2016 model, bearing registration Alpha Juliet 16 Foxtrot Lima Echo. A distinctive feature on this vehicle is that the rear driver's side alloy wheel is very different to that of the others on the vehicle. We have a witness that describes this vehicle accelerating through 3 red traffic lights prior to the collision. And we know that following the collision, the vehicle sustained quite a lot of damage, and this includes a creased bonnet, and most noticeably, the front passenger headlight became detached from the vehicle. And although it was detached, it was still illuminated and swinging by its cable. We can't be certain from CCTV, but we also believe that the windscreen sustained damage as well.
And crucially, you want to actually find this man we can take a look at linked to the vehicle before the collision. That's
correct. This is 35-year-old Keelan Winfrey. And we believe that he was the sole occupant of the vehicle at the time of the collision. He's a well-built mixed-race male, and he's got a distinctive beard and a shaven head. He is wanted in connection with this inquiry, and we believe that he's fled the country.
How can the viewers help today, Natalie?
Well, so far we've interviewed 2 people on suspicion of assisting an offender, and they currently remain on bail for those offences. It's paramount to this investigation that we locate this vehicle, as it could hold key evidence. We're appealing to witnesses that know or have any information as to the whereabouts of that vehicle. Even just knowing that that vehicle has been destroyed would be of great help. We're also appealing to witnesses or anyone who knows any information, not just about the vehicle, but also about Keelan Winfrey too. And finally, we appeal to Keelan, come forward and speak to us.
Natalie, thank you so much. If you do recognise this car, if you have any information at all on this case, then please do pick up the phone. Our details are on your screen.
Next, a wild investigation into a man who thought he'd found an infinite money loop after a glitch allowed him to nick, get this, £25 million.
This was a multi-million-pound fraud investigation. 4 years piecing together tens of thousands of pieces of evidence, recovering assets from all over the world. It was definitely the most complex investigation of my career.
On the 5th of December 2017, a man named James Parker reported a theft of Bitcoin to Lancashire Police.
He'd left his laptop unattended in a hotel bar. Someone had logged onto his laptop and withdrawn a load of Bitcoin whilst his back was turned. And we could never properly identify a suspect in that case. So that investigation was closed.
9 months later, police received a second report of a seemingly unrelated case of Bitcoin theft.
Kelly Caton had reported a named person had stolen her phone and taken 15 Bitcoin. At the time, that was £75,000.
The suspect was interviewed and gave the police 2 key pieces of information.
She directed us towards a man who lived in a hotel in Fleetwood. That person is James Parker.
She told them the source of the stolen Bitcoin was an Australian crypto exchange, a platform where you can buy, sell and trade cryptocurrency. Police contacted them and were astounded by what they heard.
They told us they'd lost 40 million Australian dollars to the fraud. At the time, that was worth about 22 million pounds in sterling. The cybercrime team had just interviewed the suspect, so they come to see me with this frankly unbelievable story of millions of pounds and unknown suspects.
It turned out the crypto exchange company unknowingly had a glitch on their website. Users were able to exploit this fault and receive bitcoins for free.
It was basically like you advertise something for sale for £100. You click buy, you get £100, but you keep your product. So it's £100 out of thin air each time they used the glitch. There was 5 customer accounts that used this glitch, 4 of which had been opened with very basic details, but one of the accounts had been set up with the name and address and a phone number. That account belonged to James Parker.
And so detectives launched an investigation into James Parker.
He lived quite a modest life. He didn't travel very much, he didn't have a car, he hadn't worked for many, many years. His bank balance never went over a couple of £100. Suddenly his standard of living completely changed. Tens of thousands of pounds is moving around his accounts on a daily basis. I ring James Parker's bank, and what I learned was staggering. Millions of pounds floating around. This is clearly going to be a huge investigation.
Parker seemed to have access to an endless supply of money, splashing the cash anywhere he could, leaving big tips and taking lavish holidays.
Parker would buy cars for people, one of them just a random person in the pub. Parker bought 10 Amazon gift cards worth £5,000 each, so he gave them out, including one to a homeless person. He bought diamond jewellery for friends, he gave loans to people whose names he couldn't remember. He was literally giving money away.
With such huge sums of money passing through his account, the bank had become suspicious and frozen his accounts. And so Parker found an independent financial advisor to help legitimise his wealth, Stephen Boys.
As someone who's regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, Stephen should have been asking questions. Where did this money come from? Is this legitimate? It would appear that the money on offer to Stephen personally was so great that he was happy to represent his client in any way that was required. He then starts putting pressure on the banks to free up James's accounts.
He successfully had the accounts unlocked. But lured by the prospect of making huge sums of money himself, Boys started using new ways to launder the money.
They start going on holiday to Dubai. They start buying villas. They start buying gold, jewellery, and flying it back to the UK in their suitcase. But the more money they have, the more problems they begin to suffer. Stephen Boys finds himself in Dubai with £1 million in a suitcase, which is a very difficult situation to be in. You can't go to the airport, you'll get stopped. You can't go to the nearest bank and deposit it because they will start asking questions. So what do? He finds his local friendly Russians and buys a villa off them in the back office of an estate agent's. He then has the audacity to whinge that it took the Russians all day to count all those banknotes one by one.
Parker was paying Stephen Boys an extortionate amount of money for his services.
James had paid Stephen £90,000 to clear his mortgage. He'd bought his mother a car. He'd bought his wife diamond jewellery. It was all criminal.
Police were on to Parker and Boys, but they knew there were others involved, and so they turned their attention to identifying the other crypto crooks.
And we'll find out what happened to Parker Boys and the rest of the crypto crooks a little later on in the programme. First, though, last year, motorcycle riders made up 20% of road fatalities, which is an extraordinary figure when they account for less than 1% of road traffic.
And we're now with Mary Lomas, who's a solicitor who advocates for motorcyclists who have suffered life-changing injuries, and Carol Close and Sergeant Adam van der Sand from Staffordshire Police to talk about how riders can stay safe on the roads. Good morning to you all. If I could start with you, Carol and Adam, you both work on something that's called Doc Bike.
Yes.
Carol, can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, Doc Bike was founded in 2013 by a critical care consultant who works on the air ambulance and a police motorcyclist. They kept meeting and kept bumping into each other at the scenes of fatalities, motorcycle fatalities, and decided to get together and do something about this. And that's where the charity was born, and injury prevention. You know, getting there first and stopping these accidents from happening is the main thing. We started the charity in 2019 in Staffordshire.
It's so important. It's of paramount importance, isn't it? And actually your involvement within this, Carol, has sadly come through your own experiences of motorcycle collisions.
Yes, I lost my youngest son, Luke, in the August of 2019 in a motorcycle accident. He was a police officer in Staffordshire. He was riding off duty and sadly we lost him. We really wanted to do something as a family to prevent other families from experiencing the heartache and the trauma that we've gone through and still going through.
So sorry to hear that.
Yeah, sorry, Carol. And Adam, Staffordshire Dog Bikes actually supports another course where riders can learn all these skills, how to keep themselves safer on the road should the worst happen.
Yeah, so one of a number of courses we sort of support and help is Biker Down. So there's three elements to that really. The first one around scene management. So if you do come across something, what to do, how to keep yourself safe. Try and resist the urge to perhaps rush in and become another casualty yourself. Often the best thing you can do is warn other road users and contact the emergency services. The next one around casualty care, so what you can do if you do need to help a motorcyclist who's come off the motorbike. The course focuses on like specific injury around that, so things like removing the helmets, CPR, dealing with traumatic bleeding and things such as that. And the final one we call the science of being seen, so that's a lot around how you can position yourself safely on the roads and differently to be seen, as you're obviously a lot smaller than most other road users, and also things around wearing conspicuous clothing, reflective clothing that stands out from your surroundings as well to help all with the prevention of being involved in an accident.
Absolutely. And Mary, within your profession as a solicitor, you see the effects of bike accidents, you know, day after day, but there are some innovations that can help when it comes to safety. Tell us about data carriers.
Yes, so we supply medical data carriers to motorcyclists. We've supplied around 10 to 15,000 over the past few years. It's a really simple piece of equipment. It's attached to the side of the helmet. Motorcyclists can put all their information on the piece of paper that's slotted inside, any medications that they're on, any allergies that they have. They can put that on there, so if they come off and they're unconscious at the scene of an accident, the first responders have that information to hand straight away to give them life-saving treatment. So it's a really important piece of kit to go alongside the other kit that you're wearing to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, really important. And so simple as well. And wearing the right kit, I know, is a really important thing for you, Mary. It's important in your line of work when you see people that come in to the cases that are not adequately protected. It's important, isn't it? And Adam, just last word from you, wearing the right kit, is that something you would always suggest for riders who go out?
Massively important, particularly like sometimes if you're in hot weather and the temptation is not to wear it. So wearing bits like we've got in here today, stuff that's up to standard, British standards, helmets, proper protective jackets, gloves, trousers and boots is essential to prevent injury or loss of life.
So important, isn't Adam, Carol, Mary, thank you so much for coming in and telling us more. You're doing really important work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And for more information on biking safely, you can head to docbike.org. Now back to the Bitcoin scammer and the detective hot on his lead.
Whilst the evidence against Parker and Boys was mounting, DS Wainwright was also investigating 2 other cryptocurrency accounts linked to the Bitcoin theft.
I identified a barman. He worked in the hotel that James Parker had moved into. He befriended James Parker and became his personal assistant. His name was Jordan Robinson. He hadn't stolen quite as much as James Parker, but we're still talking several £1 million worth of Bitcoin. Prior to this criminality, not much money in his bank account at all. Suddenly, tens of thousands of pounds are passing through his bank account. He's having nights at the local casinos, gambling thousands of pounds, which is easy to do when it's not your money.
The final account was linked to a name already known to the police.
I identified a lady in Blackpool who lived in very modest means, but suddenly became very, very affluent. Her name was Kelly Caton. She's a lady who previously reported to us that an acquaintance of hers had stolen 15 Bitcoin from her. Suddenly, I'm looking at a very different picture.
In March 2019, police simultaneously raided the suspects' homes.
I'm in charge of all these different search teams. I look inside Parker's house. And what we found was a man with more money than he knew what to spend on. He bought these 3-foot-tall elephants made with the material like you see on a shiny disco ball. He has a 75-inch television that I think had been dropped on the floor at some point. He'd bought drones, remote control boats. This was a man who had more money that he knew what to do with.
The suspects were all arrested and brought in for questioning.
James Parker tries to refuse to answer. He initially starts saying no comment, but can't help himself and starts talking.
Do you own any cryptocurrencies?
Bitcoin, Litecoin.
Tell me about those.
Oof, no comment.
Stephen Boy is a bit more intelligent. He replies no comment to everything throughout.
No comment.
Whereas Jordan Robinson talked.
At one point, I saw him withdraw £30,000.
And talked.
He said, there's dodgy Russians going about.
And talked. Couldn't shut him up.
When he came back in March, he had a kilo bar of gold.
A wealth of information for me to then react to. And Kelly Caton again tried to reply no comment, but did start to drip feed us bits of information.
I can't remember the exact details of how the glitch was exploited or worked or whatever, but...
Police seized dozens of mobile phones, laptops, computers and SIM cards and started a detailed digital forensic analysis which confirmed the links between the suspects.
Reading the text messages and the emails between them all, it was very clear the relationship between Parker and Boys was particularly soured. Parker realised that the home he lived in wasn't his own. Boys had registered it in his name, and they kicked off massively.
Boys sneakily signing over Parker's house to himself was just the beginning of the fighting between the two of them.
It then escalated when Parker asked for a Rolex watch to be bought for him when Boys went on holiday to Dubai. When Boys returned home, he realised that the watch he'd bought was slightly wrong. Parker kicked off. He smashed it with a hammer and threw it in a skip. When Boys decided to end his relationship with Parker, he pulls out this homemade contract. Parker keeps the bricks and mortar, worth about £500,000, whereas Boys was allowed to keep the contents of the bank balance, well over £1 million. He properly ripped off his client at that stage. There is no honour amongst thieves. They were all clearly trying to rip each other off by this stage.
In total, Parker and his gang had stolen the equivalent of £25 million in Bitcoin.
So during the investigation, Parker's health was failing. he was suffering quite badly with COPD. He told me himself when I last interviewed him he would die soon. In the weeks immediately before the Crown Prosecution Service charged James Parker, his health got the better of him. A lifestyle of years smoking and drinking in close confinement must have ruined his lungs, and ultimately COPD finished him off. I have very mixed feelings when James Parker died. Sad that he's died, frustrated he won't see justice, disappointed for the victim company that wanted to see him imprisoned for what he'd done.
In 2022, the remaining defendants pleaded not guilty to all charges brought against them.
This is now 4 years into the investigation. The big challenge for me, by the time we got to court, is making sure the jury understood the material. This is a complex investigation. The volume of material is massive.
After a 4-week trial, the jury found all the defendants guilty. Stephen Boys was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment for converting criminal property. Kelly Caton was sentenced to 4.5 years for conspiracy to commit fraud, 2 years for acquisition of criminal property, and 2 years for converting criminal property. Jordan Robinson was sentenced to 4.5 years for conspiracy to commit fraud, 2 years for acquisition of criminal property, and 2 years for converting criminal property.
There was a massive sense of relief when the guilty verdicts were read out. Not one of the suspects showed any remorse. This is a multi-million-pound fraud investigation. I spent 4 years piecing together thousands of pieces of evidence and recovering money from all over the world. It was easily the most complex investigation of my career.
I mean, what an investigation, but good to see justice served at the end. Now, South Wales Police are one of the UK-wide forces who use facial recognition as part of their policing, and they've just launched a new mobile app which can confirm someone's identity at the touch of a button. I'm joined now by Inspector Ben Guire and Sergeant Chris Lawrence from South Wales Police. Good to have you with us in the studio. Tell us more, how does it work?
So basically, we've built an app where it uses our facial recognition algorithm that we use in South Wales Police. And where there's a policing purpose, we can capture some basic justification details as to why we're using it, take a picture of an individual, and if they are in our database, it will bring back a match straight away with a high degree of accuracy for the operator then to make a decision as to whether it's correct or not.
OK, so like day-to-day in real time, how is it helping your officers?
So there's the obvious ones, really. It's helping us identify suspects who give us false details or are unwilling to identify themselves and identify them for crimes that they might have committed. But there's also sort of the compassionate angle as well, where people who might be in medical crisis or might have passed away, we're able to identify them more quickly, meaning that their next of kin can be told more quickly rather than finding out through social media and other veins. And obviously we can then identify that person and help them more quickly.
Of course, that makes so much sense. It could make a real difference, couldn't it? Can we have a little run of how it works then? Let's see it in action.
Yeah, of course. So this is the main data capture screen.
Yeah.
And I've pre-populated it there. So we'll use the inspector as our model. And
Lovely
I take
stuff.
a photo of him there, very professional. And then from here you can crop out. So if there was any other people in the background, etc., you can really focus in on the face.
So it was like a busy background.
Yeah, and then hit submit.
And what that's just loading up on the
yeah, so it's sending that
now.
image to our facial recognition server and it's comparing it, and it'll only bring back matches above the set threshold. And from there, then, you can compare the photo you've just taken against the file image that we hold.
I mean, that's in a matter of moments, isn't it? Really useful tool. I mean, facial recognition, it's still somewhat controversial, isn't it? I mean, what would you say to anybody that has questions around it?
Absolutely. So we've had our algorithm tested independently by the National Physical Laboratory. And what we found was that at the settings that we've got now, there is no evidence of bias towards any demographic group, so ethnicity, age or gender. But also what we've then got is a set of sort of scrutiny and oversight systems starting with the officer supervisor, making sure that the searches are being conducted properly, and going right the way up through the organisation to our police and crime commissioners, and ultimately to independent regulators such as the ICO and the biometrics and surveillance camera commissioners.
OK, that's good to hear that it's covering all bases, isn't it? And it has had some successes so far.
Absolutely. Obviously, it is only comparing against our own databases. So what we've had within that is a member of public in Gwent who was found unconscious. We weren't able to identify him. As a result of using the app, we were able to find out he had family nearby. It meant that he didn't have to go to the hospital and be looked after all night. We were able to get him to someone who was able to look after him. And it was one of the nights where it was particularly cold, so had he been left out, he probably would have come to quite significant harm. And then we've had a second one, which was quite a recent one, a male acting suspiciously around cars, stopped by officers, refused to provide details. And when they've actually stopped him, he's a wanted burglar.
Amazing. You know, really good to hear that it's working with some real life examples there. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us more. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Rav.
Great tech, but now it's time for Wanted Faces. First, do you know a Bradley Dwyer? Though he uses the nicknames Faz and Farron, GMP want to question him about the large-scale importation and distribution of drugs. He's 39, has links to Salford and Oldham in Greater Manchester and also Dubai. Or what about Sean Green? He failed to appear in court after police in Cumbria charged him with conspiracy to supply drugs. He's 28, known to operate in the North Cumbria area. Or how about Jack Treadwell? He's been recalled to prison for breaching the conditions of his licence. He's 23, 6 foot tall, has a number of tattoos, including the words Nan and Pap on his wrists. Police say he has links to Milton Keynes, Buckinghamshire, Northamptonshire and Bedfordshire. And lastly, have you seen Stephen Mumford? He's also known as Stephen Richard Persaud. Wayne, Percy, Darren, Sean and also Mohammed. He's been recalled to prison for breaching his licence. He's 43 with a range of tattoos, including the words Stephen, Zainab and a heart with the word forever in it. He has links to Oxford, Carlisle and Somerset. If you spot them, please do give us a call. Thank you so much for watching this morning and for all your calls. If you've missed any of the series so far, you can catch it up on iPlayer for up to 30 days after broadcast.
Tomorrow, how the brave actions of a team of officers were put to the ultimate test after an uncontrollable fire tore through a caravan site.
The fireball spanned a good 50 to 100 metres into the air. We need to get out of here now.
Shocking. See you tomorrow at 10:45. Bye for now.
Good morning and welcome to another week of Crime Watch Live.
Today, the tragic case of 87-year-old Eileen Blaine, who died after being viciously attacked at her home.
This burglar might think he's killed my mum, but he's killed us inside. I just hope that another family like ours doesn't go through this for the sake of 30 quid and a wedding ring.
Can you help detectives solve this awful crime?
Jamming the switchboard both here and at the incident room on that case of Welling Garden.
Just to remind you, this was the abduction and radio drop campaign and the handgun debate. Hello and welcome to Crime Watch. 12 people rang in giving the same those fantastic results.
Hello and welcome to the programme where we are coming to you from our studios in the Welsh capital.
We have got a very busy show lined up for you today, including trying to find the rightful owners of this catalogue of stolen goods.
We have a jaw-dropping film about how police caught a gang causing terror as they embarked on a stealing spree, nicking almost £4 million worth of cars.
We had this group of 6 or 7 individuals, some of them as young as 15, who were responsible for committing a large amount of car crime across Manchester. Pretty much £4 million worth of cars in a 10-month period.
And how a team of brave officers put their lives on the line when they came face to face with a man carrying explosives.
Put the gun down!
it had wires hanging out of the top of the bag. At that point, I realised that it was an IED.
As always, police and our team are close by, ready to answer your calls. You can find our contact details using the QR code below, or call us on 08000 468 999. Text us on 63399, start with the word crime, leave a space, then write your message. Or email us at cwl@bbc.co.uk.
First this morning, it's a heartbreaking appeal on one of society's most vulnerable. A savage attack claimed the life of 87-year-old Eileen Blaine. This, of course, is a very moving film.
He just wouldn't stop hitting me, that was the main thing. Just asked him to stop, but he wouldn't. He just said he wanted gold all the time. But it was just a nightmare.
Family has always been at the heart of 87-year-old Eileen Blaine's life.
She enjoyed family coming round, she enjoyed seeing our children born, my children, my brother's children.
Mum would be the one that we turn to all the time.
For 63 years, she was happily married to husband Andrew until his death in 2003.
My dad was everything to my mum. It was very difficult when my father first passed away, but my mum being as she was, she became resilient, she got tough.
With her husband gone, Eileen treasured one item in particular which held special memories of him.
The wedding ring meant a great deal to my mum. She only has to look at it and it reminds her of my father and their life that they had together.
On Friday the 3rd of February 2017, Eileen went shopping at her local supermarket.
She was very fit and agile for her age. On a weekly basis, she'd get a little shopping trolley and go up to the shop at the top of the road.
CCTV from the supermarket shows her picking up her groceries.
You don't realise how independent she was. I mean, she used to get on buses and take the dog a walk. At 87, when you think about it, you wouldn't think she'd be doing that, would you?
As she's coming home with the shopping, she thought she saw the window cleaner, so she gave him a little wave, came home.
After she unpacked her shopping, there was a knock at the back door.
Because she'd only just seen the window cleaner, she automatically thought he was coming to get paid.
But it wasn't him.
And that's when he punched her straight in the face. She didn't have time to do anything, and then he hit her again.
It was relentless, he would not stop. She's on the floor, and he then continued to kick her.
Eileen begged the man to stop, but he kept on, demanding gold and money.
Mum raised her hands like that to say, I've got no gold, I've got no money, and unfortunately he saw a wedding ring on her finger.
Ripping the wedding ring off her hand, he dragged Eileen into the living room, where he threw her Jack Russell Sammy into the wall.
At this point, he said to me, Mum, you're not getting out of here alive.
Eileen was trapped. But when her attacker went upstairs to search for more valuables, she seized her opportunity.
The first thing she could think of was pick the little dog up and run out the front door. And she ran straight to her neighbour's house.
They called the police, but Eileen's attacker fled before they arrived.
Well, she had bruises all over her face, and her eyes, and her nose.
It was only when she went to hospital and she had x-rays that they then found out she sustained 3 broken ribs and a broken vertebrae in the base of her spine where he'd been kicking her. After 5 weeks in hospital, she was then really turning the corner.
Despite her injuries, Eileen seemed to be making a good recovery.
She was looking forward to getting home, seeing a little dog.
And on the 31st of March 2017, doctors finally allowed her to go home.
All she dreamt about and really thought about was, I'll be going home tomorrow, I'll be going home tomorrow. So when she got told she could go out, she was absolutely happy.
But just a single day after her return home, Eileen passed away.
Well, I've lost my mum. I've lost a friend. I've lost everything. This burglar might think he's killed my mum, but he's killed us inside.
Started chucking me about and I couldn't get up and ask him to stop. He wouldn't. Yeah, it was quite nasty. He said we weren't going to get out, you see. He was going to make sure we didn't. But it was just a nightmare.
We've lost somebody to speak to, somebody to confide in. You can't quantify that.
I just hope that someone does catch him in the end, so that another family like ours doesn't go through this for the sake of 30 quid and a wedding ring. What a price to pay.
Well, I'm joined now by DI Paul Davis from Greater Manchester Police. Good to have you with us this morning, Paul. This is such a senseless, brutal attack. What more can you tell us about the investigation so far?
It is. We're treating it as a murder investigation. Eileen was 87 years of age, very active, very independent, and she was just going about her weekly shopping when she was then attacked in her own home.
It's shocking. It really, really is. We've actually got a map. Just explain what we're seeing here.
This is a local area of Stretford that covering the Barton Road is the main road through. You can see Eileen's address, and it's a very short distance to the local shop where she does shopping and then returns. Yeah, just carrying out her usual routine. Yeah. What on earth could have motivated somebody to carry out an attack like this? I believe the motive is robbery. The male who entered used force and violence by assaulting Eileen in the address, then demanded cash and gold. And we can just see some of the images, Paul, of the injuries that poor Eileen sustained. Just terrible. We talked about items that were stolen. One thing that was mentioned, which was of huge sentimental value, was Eileen's wedding ring. Is that something that's managed to be recovered? We've not recovered it, and we desperately want to recover it for the family. That's what they want. It was given to Eileen by her late husband, Andrew, on their wedding day. So it's incredibly important that we get that back. Absolutely, we heard. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead with the description. The description is it's a gold wedding band with a crosshatch design on it. Yeah, and we heard from Eileen's sons, David and John, in the film. It would mean so much to them. Let's talk about the suspect. What description can you give us of this person? He's a white male. He's 5'8", slim build, and he was wearing a black coat with a hood over the top of his face. So, Paul, for people that are watching today, how can they help with this appeal? What are you looking for? I'm looking for the community of Stretford to come forward, really. 8 years have passed since this incident. People may have not felt brave enough to come forward and give information at the time, and I ask them to think and just pick up the phone and call us. Absolutely. And over time, allegiances change. People might have fallen out and now be thinking, actually, it's time to do the right thing. It is, yeah. I believe that this person would have confided in somebody close to them. 8 years have passed. I want them to search their conscience, do the right thing for the family, and come forward so we can get justice for Eileen and that family. So important. Just finally to note as well, Greater Manchester Police are offering a £50,000 reward, aren't they, for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the individual responsible. Yes, there is. Paul, thanks so much for coming in and telling us more. Now, all the ways to get in touch with us are on the screen. Just stand by the clock, or you can contact Greater Manchester Police, which is on the number below.
Later on, we're going to be chatting to Andy and Jim from Healthier Heroes, a charity helping ex-veterans get back on their feet. Now, though, I'm with DS Charlie Pulling from Avon and Somerset Police, who has this vast collection of stolen items you can see here that he wants to find the owners for. Charlie, it really is an incredible display, but how did you come into police possession of all these items?
Well, good morning, Rav. My team and I were investigating a large series of burglaries across the Somerset area that happened between August and November 2024, although we believe that some of the burglaries happened back beyond December 2023.
We see on the map here, actually, every pink spot you can see, you believe, is a burglary that was being committed by the same group of individuals. There's a massive amount there, isn't there? Huge.
Yeah, you can see how widespread it is and how many people that it's actually affected.
Yeah, so who do you think was responsible for these crimes?
So we...
you had a group of individuals.
Yep, so the group, they were a prolific group of individuals that sometimes committed between 3 or 4 burglaries in a single night. They targeted large rural properties and sometimes businesses and farmhouses as well. Yeah. They would generally scope out the property beforehand, and then on the night of the offending, they would enter the grounds and then try the doors or windows, and sometimes gain access through sash windows. Once inside, they then stole anything they get their hands on that thought they had any sort of monetary value, which is why we've got such a vast array of property that we've recovered. Yeah, we're going to come on to this shortly. I just want to know how you actually caught this group, because you've got 2, they're on remand at the moment, you've got 2 that have already pleaded guilty and 1 awaiting trial in a couple of months' time. How did you finally get them? Well, we had an idea who was committing the burglaries, and then we had a couple of breaks in the case. We had some warrants sworn out and then executed the warrants, where we arrested the 3 people that were charged. And then during those warrants, we were able to seize around 450 items of stolen property. Of those 450, we've managed to repatriate around 100. And there's a pretty novel way you did this as well, where you're thinking outside the box. You actually hired out a hall, didn't you, and got people to come and have a look at it. Let's have a look at this here. What's happened here? So we hired a hall for a couple of days, and we put all of the items on display, so the victims of burglary could come in and have a look to see if they could find any of their property. And as you say, you got a number of those items back. However, there are still a number outstanding, some of which we've got here. So let's just talk us through what we've got here. We're going to start with this large clock that we've got in the studio. Charlie, what do we know about this here? So, yeah, we have the antique grandfather clock there. We have a silver candelabra. Just next to me, very distinctive. And with all these items, Charlie, it's not just the value, it's the sentimental value that can be so important to get it back. So we've got the candelabra, as you say. In the centre here on the table, I'm interested with this. What have we got here? So we've got a very old Bible that dates back to 1816. Wow. So, you know, this was stolen along with a number of other valuable books as well. It's going to be very important, and someone's clearly going to want to have this back, I'm sure. If anyone's looking at these and they just say, I want to have another look, where can I get into contact? What should they do? So I'd urge any victim of burglary for the last couple of years to log on to our website, Avon and Somerset website, and check out our online gallery where they can scroll through all of the images. And then if they've got a receipt or they can prove provenance, then we'd be delighted to get those items back to them. Oh, we'd be delighted as well, Charlie. Thank you. Do take a closer look at this selection of stolen items. You can also head to our website, or as you've just heard, the Seized Property Gallery of Avon and Somerset Police's website for the full list.
Next, how a dangerous gang stole millions of pounds worth of cars and were caught thanks to their online bragging.
I've never seen anyone be so brazen about committing crime. They just had no regard for what they were doing. They just saw the cars as pound signs.
On the 23rd of May 2022, in Droylsden, Greater Manchester, police receive a report from a local resident in the early hours of the morning. The detective who investigated the case cannot be identified.
It was a Sunday evening, family time, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Parked outside, they had a Golf GTI. They went to bed as they normally would. They were woken up by a neighbour at around 10 to 2 in the morning. The neighbour had seen the Golf GTI being stolen. They were shaken up at the time. The 4-year-old was really worried, and he had to sleep in their room for a good 6 months after the incident because he was scared that the men were going to come back in.
About an hour later at 3 a.m. in the Chadderton area of Oldham, a local resident was quietly praying at home when they were disturbed by a strange noise.
So we went to investigate, and he was confronted by 2 masked men within his house. Both these men had knives. He saw 2 further males at the rear door. They were shouting, "Give us the R keys, give us the R keys." He had a VW Golf R parked on his drive outside. Having struggled with them, they found his car keys and they all ran out of the house and drove away in his car. After the offence, he was shaken. He was more angry that it had happened, that these lads had broken into his house, targeted him, stole his car, all whilst his family were present. He's since moved house because of this incident.
4 weeks later, on the 16th of June 2022, in Upmill, Oldham, a 3rd incident occurred.
The victim, he'd spent £55,000 on a VW Golf R, treated himself to this really nice car that he'd wanted for a long time. He pulled up at his home address, parked on the drive, and he was removing some items from his boot. 2 men got out of a grey BMW 1 Series, ran to the victim and forcibly shoved him to the floor. They punched him, they threatened to stab him, he hit his head on the flower bed and constantly asked for the keys to his car. One of the males picks up the key, gets into the car, whilst the second male holds the victim down on the ground. He starts the engine, reverses off the victim's drive, colliding with the wall as he does so, leaving the victim on his driveway. One of the neighbours came out with a phone and tried to record the driver of the vehicle as he was driving away. He was really shaken. He had cuts and bruises to his head, but the trauma he went through on his own driveway, I think, affected him more mentally than physically. He didn't feel safe in his own home anymore, and because of this, he's had to move.
As the gang got more brazen, their level of violence increased. On the 30th of June, 2 men were dragged out of bed at knife point to hand over the key to their cars.
CCTV showed that the boy's father had woken up because of the commotion and seen his sons outside the address, and he couldn't do anything about it because they kept the door shut. They ran round the front of the house, stole the car, crashed it into another one as they were driving off. To have entered someone's house and dragged them out of bed at knife point was probably the most terrifying incident as part of this investigation I saw.
Suspecting the crimes were the work of the same gang, the team worked closely with the Tactical Vehicle Intercept Unit, who had created a detailed intelligence picture of who could be responsible.
We came together and we had this group of 6 or 7 individuals who were responsible for committing a large amount of car crime across Manchester, a huge amount of car crime, some of them as young as 15. As we were looking at these incidents and the crimes that had been reported already, how could we link these people to it? They were still out every night committing crime. On one occasion, they stole 4 cars from one address. A lot of the time, they were targeting high-powered vehicles. Other times, they might target what they call dingers or a blender, so a car to go and commit further criminality in. So we started to take them off one by one and try and prioritise who we thought was maybe more dangerous or who was more prolific than the others.
In October 2022, a 17-year-old who can't be named due to his age was arrested.
He had family members that were involved in car crime. He had a device that was used in the keyless thefts of Land Rover or Jaguar vehicles. There was dozens of Range Rovers that they stole in that way. He had a lot of contacts for a 17-year-old.
His phone was analysed and showed him bragging about the cars he'd stolen to a 27-year-old man named Kyle Camp. Camp was already in prison awaiting sentence for 2 burglaries he'd pleaded guilty to. Detectives seized Camp's phone and discovered a raft of incriminating evidence linking him to the gang.
We'd now found someone that was much older, that was obviously orchestrating things. We realised quite quickly that he was one of the males responsible for the robbery in Upper Mill on the 16th of June 22. So I think he was hoping by pleading guilty to the 2 burglaries and we wouldn't then discover all the crimes that he was involved in over that summer.
Through further digital forensic work and cell site analysis, police were able to gather more damning evidence.
He sent a video and it showed that Golf GTI on that video and it showed the full reg of the car that was stolen at the time. It was a bingo moment. We also linked him to the robbery in Chadderton. The phone, as he's using it, pings to masts in that area at the time of the offence.
He also had multiple pictures and messages linking him directly to other crimes.
One incident, we know that Camp threatened a female with a screwdriver, stole a car, a neighbour had tried to block them in. He rammed them out of the way in the stolen car and drove away, and we found messages on his phone boasting about the incident later that day. In another incident, we found that someone had taken a photo of him on a stolen motorbike, posing in the clothes that he'd used to steal the bike in. I've never seen anyone be so brazen.
Police were able to link Camp to 15 burglaries and robberies over a 7-week period during the summer of 2022.
We also showed, due to his age, he was a senior member of that organised crime group responsible for stealing pretty much £4 million worth of cars in a 10-month period.
On the 24th of January 2025, Camp pleaded guilty at Manchester Crown Court to burglary, theft, robbery and handling stolen goods. He was sentenced to 14 years and 4 months.
It was a real rewarding job for us all. Although there was a huge amount of evidence on this case, it was made a lot easier by them because they were so vain. They wanted to show off about how great of a criminal they were. It was just idiotic. He got exactly what he deserved.
Just terrifying for the victims, though, targeted by that gang.
Absolutely. But great police work there.
Yes,
good result at the end.
Absolutely. Good to get the gang off the streets. We're joined on the sofa now by ex-Army veterans Andy Powell and Jim Barton. They're from Healthier Heroes, a charity providing support for military vets who are experiencing difficult times. Really good to have you both in the studio with us. Thanks so much for coming in. Andy, just to start with you, tell us a bit more about Healthier Heroes and how it all came about.
Sure. So Healthier was formed based on the background of sort of like the difficulties that I faced going through my mental health struggles, addiction, attempted suicides, and basically reaching out for the help and support and not getting it. So it kind of took me 5 years to recover, going through various sort of processes, and Healthier Heroes was formed in 2018 to make sure that no one went through that same process.
It's a horrible, horrible thing for anyone to have to go through. Clearly a very, very tough time, Andy. But what sort of support does the organisation offer veterans?
So we offer quite a lot of support, to be fair, and the main thing that we offer is Bancroft House, so it's the accommodation side of it, kind of where Jim lives. So we're taking veterans off the streets who are homeless, veterans leaving prison who have got nowhere to live, providing that safe space and recovery programmes within. So mental health, providing counselling support, drug and alcohol addiction, education, employment and training, a plethora of sort of health and wellbeing activities as well, which my wife Rio runs, who's the co-founder and owner. You know, and so that the package is very vast. There's a lot going on.
You cover so much, which is absolutely fantastic to hear. So how many veterans are you currently working with?
So at the moment we have 21 in Bancroft House. We've got 8 in our move on property, so 29 at any one time, and we're looking to expand. But since December 2020, when Bancroft House was open, 206 veterans have been through our doors, and we're currently supporting 312 veterans and family members across the North West and Lancashire, so it's pretty busy.
Yeah,
really
very busy.
Yeah, great to hear. And Jim, you are someone who has had first-hand experience of just how this organisation has helped you and is continuing to help you now. Just tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah, so I mean, sort of lots of my journey, there's sort of similarities to Andy's as well. So I served 15 years with the Royal Anglian Regiment, so an infantry unit. For 9 years of that, I was a combat medic. And unfortunately, back in 2010, I was quite badly injured in Afghanistan. And then, as a knock-on from that, I was eventually medically discharged in 2018. So obviously my career was taken away from me. I mean, I was fortunate in the fact that as sort of I had my background in medicine, so I actually went on to East Midlands Ambulance Service and joined as a paramedic. Which, you know, absolutely loved the job. But unfortunately, because I hadn't been given the support, especially for my historic issues with alcohol and my mental health, in 2019, I had a really severe mental health crisis. And so I turned to alcohol again as that coping mechanism. And unfortunately, a series of catastrophic events then led to me actually going to prison. So I was in prison from December 2019 to December 21, so I did 2 years. But even when I was released, I felt like a rabbit in the headlights. You know, I felt kind of lost, like I didn't really have a purpose or anything, you know. Very much like a lot of us feel when we leave the military, especially when you're medically discharged, you know. Yeah. I tried my hand as a fibre optics engineer, but then quickly realised that...
Get a sense that wasn't for you, that
was not for me whatsoever. No. So I kind of knocked that one on the head. But then, obviously, well, unfortunately, Russia obviously invaded Ukraine in February 22. And to be honest, it was something that I felt I had to go and do when Zelensky did that call to arms.
So you felt you got drawn to actually go and...
Yes, So I basically, I booked a one-way ticket, packed my kit, and then I went and joined the International Legion as a combat medic. So I did 7 months out there on various front lines around the country. Unfortunately, I was injured twice in that 7 months, and then on my second time, I kind of, to be fair, I was physically and mentally burnt out, you know, and I was ready to come back to the UK and kind of recuperate more than anything. And then it was basically pretty much bang on a year after that was when I was introduced to Andy and to Healthier Heroes.
And they've made a real difference to your life, haven't they?
Yeah, absolute game changer. I mean, you know, I would openly admit, I'll be the first to admit actually, and you know, I'd say 95% of the guys that have been through Bancroft or are still currently there, you know, will openly admit that it's saved their life in some form or another, you know.
It's really good to see how you've turned it around, Jim. It really is, and you seem to be in such a good place now, which is really good to see. And Andy, this is open to men, women, all services?
Yeah, all services, tri-service and families as well. So it's really important that families know that we're there to support them. So it's not just the lads or the ladies that have served, it's a combination of both. So please give us a shout. If you need any help, we're here to do that.
Thank you so much for coming in. Honestly, it's been great to hear more. Really appreciate it. You're doing great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the quick thinking of officers in our next film certainly saved lives when they came up against a man brandishing explosives and a handgun.
I am PC Emma Davies and I work at Hampshire Constabulary. I have a love for the job I don't think I can explain in words.
I'm PC Scott Thompson. The job gives me a fulfilment in regards to helping others.
I don't ever see myself doing anything other than what I do now. Generally, being a police officer, you accept that there's always going to be a level of danger. You are walking into the unknown and you don't know what you're going to be faced with.
You've got to be ready for anything.
On the 28th of August 2023, we'd been tasked to locate suspects. We arrived at an address in Gosport where we were trying to arrest him. Damian Mazakiewicz because it was reported that he had breached his restraining order. There were no warnings for him. We knew very little about him.
It was just a normal August bank holiday. Sun was shining, it was really warm, not much happening out on the street.
We knew that there was likely to be someone inside that property. I went round to ensure that Mazakiewicz didn't escape out the back.
The officer that had gone in first saw a male coming down the stairs and he had a revolver to his temple.
Put the gun down, put the gun down, put the gun down, do it now. Do it now, put the gun down. Put the gun down. Put the gun down, do it now.
That's when the adrenaline started to kick in. We don't know if this is an imitation firearm, we don't know if it's a real one. Somebody could die, somebody could be seriously injured.
Put the gun down.
He was doing something with his left hand and I don't know what he was doing.
Put the gun down.
And then all of a sudden you hear this bang and all just this cloud of smoke.
I heard 3 loud bangs. I thought that my colleagues had been shot. I ran as fast as I could.
My other colleague tasered the suspect.
The hallway was filled with thick black smoke. I thought, oh God, he set something on fire.
Get your arm behind your back!
There was smoke billowing out from underneath him. It made you cough. It was unpleasant to be around. We didn't know what the smoke was at the time. We weren't sure if it was toxic. They were dragging him out. One of my colleagues was cutting a strap off from around his right shoulder.
When I was cutting that off, I could just feel all this heat coming from it.
Is he still attached to the taser?
And it had wires hanging out of the top of the bag. At that point, I realised that it was an IED. We were all in a lot of danger.
The heat and the smoke coming from this device, I knew that that had to get away very quickly. I had to kick it out of the way.
Get away.
I could see him reaching down for a second bag.
Stop, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get your bag!
So I've cut that one off as well, and made sure that was out the way so he couldn't reach. He's then been stood up and escorted to the police van.
I went to the boot of our car and I got the fire extinguisher and then doused the first device. The explosive ordnance disposal unit arrived.
To start taking lead on making sure that these devices were made safe.
When I got home that day, I think that's when it really hit me. It was almost like a bit of a snap back to reality. The following day, we were told that the second device contained ball bearings, shattered glass and knife tips. I found that really difficult to process, I think. We were just so lucky the device didn't work as Mazakiewicz had intended to use it.
This could have been so much worse, that we could either be in hospital or not coming home at all.
I think at the time of the incident, I was worried that I wasn't going to be coming home to my kids.
I didn't have any feelings at that point apart from get the job done. This is what we're here for. We need to save life and limb. Damian Mazakiewicz was sentenced to 4 years and 3 months. Having somebody with that knowledge that can produce an IED off the streets, it keeps the public safe and it keeps anybody else that deals with incidents like that safe. I wasn't expecting to be nominated for the National Police Bravery Awards. It was just great.
We went to Downing Street and that was surreal.
And to have this sort of award and recognition is once in a lifetime. coming off that stage, just I could feel the smile on my face and I could feel my cheeks hurting because it was just brilliant.
It was emotional. It was an amazing thing to have achieved, really. But I'm more proud of the way that we pulled together as a team and we dealt with that situation.
We all knew what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and I think that was the proudest moment for me.
We kept each other safe and we kept the public safe by understanding each other and just getting the job done. I think that really that's the best achievement.
Yeah, congratulations to PC Emma and PC Scott there. Thoroughly well-deserved with your award. In dealing with volatile, unpredictable situations like the ones those officers were facing is obviously extremely brave, but standing up and improving our communities is something we can all do, even in smaller ways. I'm joined now by PCSO Lloyd Bridgman from South Wales Police and Janet Hayward, the head teacher of Cadoxton Primary School in Barry. Really good to see you both this morning. Janet, I guess the story starts with you. Tell us what happened at the school.
So, Michelle, we came back to school after the Christmas holidays. We were excited to be back, but our reception children, 4 and 5 years old, went outside into their garden area where they go and learn every day. And they were really upset to find that their outside allotment shed had been broken into and damaged.
Oh, no. And this isn't the first time it had happened, is it?
So it happened for the first time then, but it happened a few times afterwards.
Right.
So the children became so upset that they actually made some posters.
Bless them.
That they,
wow.
just like this.
I mean, you can see some of them here. Stop hurting our shed. With a big sad face. Clearly it's something that really affected them, Janet.
So they were really upset. They cleaned up the space, but the people kept on coming back.
And Lloyd, this is where you come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So when the incidents were reported to the police, I made a visit to the school where I met Jan, provided a bit of reassurance to Jan and her staff and some of the children. And yeah, we decided then just to get access to the school by getting hold of a set of keys from Jan. We noticed that the incidents were happening in between, say, 7:30 and like 9 o'clock in the evening.
Right.
So, myself and 3 of my colleagues, we decided to do a quick patrol, and I think it was about 8 o'clock at night. And we located 2 subjects in the garden. One was detained, one made off, but the good news is we know who they both are now, and an investigation is still ongoing.
What a fantastic result. So what has this meant for the garden now, and how's it looking?
So the garden is back to its former self, but that's thanks to some parent volunteers, but also some fantastic community volunteers, including Lloyd.
Well, you're a governor of the school as well now, Lloyd, aren't you?
Apparently so. Apparently so.
But talking about this connection with communities, it's so important, isn't it? And actually, Lloyd, local communities can get in touch with their PCOs really, really easily. That's something that you want to get out there.
Yeah, so first of all, obviously, we're out and about, high-vis. Members of the public can approach us and speak to us whenever they like. But I think it's important to mention the people that don't feel they have a voice in the community. South Wales Police have now created a messaging service called South Wales Listens. So it gives members of the public an opportunity to engage with us through that messaging service. It's free of charge, where we actually send out messages to them of what's happening in their community, or they can speak to us about anything they're having issues with. It's important to mention that it's not to report crimes. That needs to be 909 or 101. But yeah, it's just a tool for them to engage with us. We also send messages out for crime reduction, and we can also send out messages for certain events that we're doing in your local community. So they can just pop along and have a chat with us.
Really useful tool. Yeah. And finally, Janet, what's the reaction been like from the students having this beautiful garden now?
The children just love their garden. They love being outside. And I think it's just the thing about them understanding they're part of a community.
That's the thing, isn't
it? Takes a village to raise a child, and Lloyd is part of that
Very
village.
Well said. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in, and I'm glad it's a good news story.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
We just got time for a rundown of today's Wanted Faces. And we're starting with Jamal Adam Anderson. Greater Manchester Police want to question him about conspiracy to supply cocaine. He'll be 40 in May, has connections to Salford, Bury, Hume in Greater Manchester, but police haven't ruled out that he may have left the UK. Next, can you help Merseyside Police find Anthony Mark Quigley? In 2017, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison for a drugs conspiracy. And since he's released, he's breached the conditions of his licence and has been recalled to prison. He's 46, has links across Merseyside and also to Wales and Scotland, although police think he may have travelled abroad as well. Or have you seen Jesse Amaru Hanna? He too has been recalled to prison after breaching the strict conditions of his licence. He's 26 foot tall, slim with short hair. Thames Valley Police say he has connections to Dunmow in Essex and Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire. And last for today anyway, we've got Mohammed Kebab Khan, who also uses the name Hebab. West Midlands Police need to speak to him in relation to drugs offences. He's 30 and has links to East Birmingham, in particular Spark Hill, Sparkbrook and Moseley, and also to St Albans in Hertfordshire, Scotland, as well as Dubai. So, you recognise any of these men, do get in touch using the details on screen below. That's all we've got time for today. If you would like support with some of the subjects raised in the programme, help is available at BBC Action Line. Remember, you can also watch us on iPlayer for up to 30 days after broadcast.
Tomorrow, how a crook who found a loophole in a cryptocurrency platform managed to steal £25 million.
This is a multi-million pound fraud investigation. 4 years, thousands of pieces of evidence, and recovering money from all over the world. It was the most complex investigation of my career.
See you tomorrow for that and more, 10:45. Bye for now.
See you then.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. We've got a busy programme, so do stay with us. Today, we'll be hearing from police about how they caught a trio of teens stealing mopeds just to go on a joyride.
These lads were doing it for fun and games. Absolutely no regard whatsoever to any of their victims. We all really wanted to get these lads into custody.
We're in Stoke-on-Trent to hear from a charity supporting young people who've been affected by knife crime.
So far, the charities helps thousands of young people. Our aim is to show them that they're part of a bigger community that's going to make sure that they feel safe and they feel supported always.
Also, the Met Police need help with an investigation into a sexual assault against a child.
And we'll be joined by a charity advocating for families who've lived through fatal domestic abuse.
As always, police and our team are ready to take your calls today, so do get in touch. You can use the QR code below. Just hover your phone's camera over the code and follow the link. Or call us on 08000 468 999. Give us a text on 63399. Start with the word crime, leave a space, then write your message. Or email us at cwl@bbc.co.uk.
First this morning, in a case that was woefully underreported at the time. In 2023, 48-year-old Fiona Home was murdered by her partner. Today, police want to find out where her remains are so her family can grieve her properly. Just to warn you, this film contains some upsetting scenes.
I have a picture in my bedroom of my mum. I see it every day and I just think, I need to know where you are.
When I read the name, I got goosebumps on my arms because I knew that he had murdered another woman.
"48-year-old Fiona Home lived alone with family close by.
My mum, she was just one of them people that was just one in a million. She was so generous.
She'd brighten up your day. She would, definitely.
I was born with sickle cell anemia and I've been going in and out of hospital since birth. My mum's always been there. She's always been supportive. She was more like my best friend when I was growing up. And it was more like she just wanted to do the same things what I wanted to do. Like, she wanted to party. She wanted to show us her dance moves. She thought she was the best dancer in the world.
I think she was about 35 when she got diagnosed with autism, ADHD. She's basically got a mind of a 15-year-old. She was too trusting. She didn't see danger, she didn't see bad in anyone. She was very vulnerable, and a lot of people did take advantage of her.
In January 2023, Fiona had told her family she'd started a relationship with a man in his 60s.
My sister said to me she was going to some man's house she just met. So I was like, well, let me talk to him, because I didn't want to go into someone I didn't know. I spoke to him, he was kind of rude on the phone. He was, I think, a handyman. His name was Cole Cooper.
Around the time Fiona met Carl, she had started seeing less of her family.
It was March 23. I was really ill with my sickle cell and I had a lot of blood transfusions. I was in and out of hospital. I thought it was quite strange because I couldn't get hold of my mum sometimes when I was calling her.
Then a month later, Fiona called the police.
She disclosed that Cooper had threatened her that evening with a crowbar. And she also told officers that he'd previously stabbed her in the arm with a screwdriver at her home address a few weeks before.
Cooper was given a domestic violence prevention order, banning him from contact with Fiona for 28 days. Then a few months later, police were called a second time.
On the 29th of June 2023, Fiona was reported missing by her social worker.
The social worker called me and asked if I've spoken to Fiona. She was trying to get hold of her. She said she went to her place, no one was there. She's been ringing her phone, no answer. So I said, right, I'm going to go and have a look for her.
I went to my mum's house to see if she was there or if anyone in Blackheath knew where she was. Everybody said they haven't seen her for about a month. Then I went in the kitchen. Somebody just said to me, pull out the bed sheets in the washing machine, and it actually had all mould on it.
Fiona clearly hadn't been home for some time, so Elise and Savannah decided to visit Carl Cooper's house to see if she was there.
When we arrived at Carl Cooper's house, all of his windows were painted white. So my partner scraped it and we looked in and it just looked like a cluttered house.
We was calling Fiona.
Yeah.
We were shouting for Fiona, because really we thought that he was keeping her against her will.
The house was empty, so they reluctantly left. But when Fiona didn't call her mum on her birthday, Elise and her brother decided to visit Carl Cooper's house again.
We noticed a man with a van on Coles Drive. And we asked the van driver if we could look in the back of his van. I noticed my sister's furry jacket. When the man gave it to me, it smelt of my sister and I was just sick. I was physically sick. I just knew then there's something bad's happened to her.
Unbeknownst to them, it turned out that Carl Cooper was already on police's radar.
In February 2022, we began a murder investigation of a woman who died in her flat in Woolwich.
The body of a 41-year-old woman called Naomi Hunt had been found by her neighbour. She'd been stabbed multiple times.
Looking at Naomi's life, we knew that she'd been in contact with a man, and that man's name was Carl Cooper. We know from previous police reports that Naomi had made against Carl that he was jealous and possessive. She'd reported him previously for stalking her and turning up at her address unannounced and refusing to leave. The case against Carl Cooper was very difficult for us because we didn't have any forensic evidence to suggest that he was involved in Naomi's murder. We had no witnesses. He himself had been interviewed and said, yes, he was there, but he left and she was still alive. And it was difficult for us at that time to prove that he was the person responsible, and we didn't have sufficient evidence to take the case to the Crown Prosecution Service.
Cooper was released on bail due to lack of evidence, and then 11 months later, he started his relationship with Fiona, who lived just 4 miles away from Naomi. When DCI Kate Blackburn heard about the disappearance of Fiona Home and that she'd been in a relationship with the chief suspect in a murder case, she acted immediately.
We'd been investigating Naomi's murder at that point for about 14 months, and I got goosebumps on my arms when I read Carl Cooper's name because I knew that he had murdered another woman. I went straight to my boss and I said that we needed to take on the investigation. I knew that both investigations would be stronger together and would provide us with the best evidence to secure a conviction. So I instructed officers to arrest him at that point and bring him to the police station for questioning.
Is it Carl?
Yes.
Carl, you're under arrest, okay, for the murder of Fiona Home. You didn't have to say anything, it may harm your offence if you do not mention
By this time, Fiona had been missing for more than 2 weeks. Cooper was arrested for murder.
Oh, I would never forget that feeling.
So why them choose me? Why them choose me?
They brought us to the police station and said they've arrested him on suspicion of murder.
In that moment, I didn't want to process it. I didn't believe it, that he done something so serious to my mum.
With Cooper in custody, DCI Blackburn and her team needed to track Fiona's last known movements.
We conducted extensive witness inquiries and CCTV inquiries and found footage of Fiona in Verdant Lane on the 20th of June 2023 at about 9:30 at night.
This was very close to Carl Cooper's house.
Cooper said, I saw Fiona that night, we went to the shop, we went back to my house, but she left by dawn.
But they had a huge breakthrough when they viewed some body-worn footage a fellow officer had taken in Cooper's living room 3 months earlier.
That showed a very different living room to the living room that we were faced with. There was a corner sofa, the TV was working, there was a glass coffee table, there was a rug on the floor, there was space to sit down on the sofa, and it was very much a livable, usable room. However, when we attended in June 2023, that wasn't the case. The front windows had been painted white, which appeared to be quite odd. You could see that the living room had been completely stripped out of wallpaper, the curtains had been cut, and it was no longer a usable room and had been filled with junk from the rest of the house. There was a corner sofa that used to be in the living room at Carl Cooper's flat. 2/3 of that had been removed and taken to a waste disposal site. And we could see that the sofa, which was a white pleather material, looked like the covering had been ripped from that sofa.
Police suspected Cooper had the sofa disposed of to hide crucial evidence. Forensic examinations of the house uncovered more vital clues.
We found blood belonging to Fiona on the walls of the property. There was also blood on a router in the corner of the property. Cooper would set fires around the time that Fiona went missing. We believe that was to dispose of evidence.
Whilst the findings confirmed everyone's worst fears, they didn't answer the biggest question.
What happened that night? Where is her body?
Police charged Cooper with Fiona's murder.
The blood evidence in the house was significant because until we had the confirmation that the blood on the walls was Fiona, we had very little forensic evidence or any direct evidence to say that Carl Cooper was responsible for either murder.
In June 2024, Carl Cooper was found guilty of the murders of Fiona and Naomi. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison for each murder.
We all just started crying.
And then I had to make the call to my mum. Yeah, that was hard. Because you're happy, but you're not. How can you be happy about that?
And then when they gave him a chance to speak, he was just, you could tell they had no remorse whatsoever. He didn't care.
I thought that he was going to tell us where our body was after he got found guilty and sentenced, but he just walked away.
The family just want to lay Fiona to rest, and so the police investigation continues to try and find her body.
She's out there on her own. We don't know where she is. She's just... It's horrible.
Most of us are not sleeping, not eating properly. My nan's always waiting by the phone, waiting for a phone call to say that they found my mum's body.
You can't move on because we can't say goodbye to her properly.
We can't grieve properly either. The thought of never laying my mum to rest, there's no words for it, to be honest with you. I just can't explain it. It's just so horrible and so upsetting because my mum doesn't deserve it.
This really has been so incredibly hard for Fiona's family. I'm joined now by DCI Kate Blackburn from the Met Police. Thanks so much for being with us in the studio. We obviously heard in the film there that Carl Cooper has been found guilty of 2 murders. So what do you want to appeal for today?
Yeah, so Carl Cooper was convicted last year of the murders of Naomi Hunt and Fiona Home. But today, my appeal is about Fiona. So we haven't recovered Fiona's body. And what I want to do today is ask anyone who has any knowledge of where Fiona may be to come forward. But I'd also like to just talk about Fiona, because although Fiona did have vulnerabilities, she was an incredibly resilient woman. She was very much loved by her family. And to have her back would mean the world to them, as you've heard in the video.
So let's talk, Kate, about Fiona's movements and where she was going the last time that she was seen.
Yeah, so Fiona left a property in Verdant Lane and she walked towards Brownhill Road. Carl Cooper lived in Broadfield Road, which was a couple of roads along, and we know that she ended up that night in Broadfield Road at Carl Cooper's home address. But we have no footage after her in Verdant Lane.
So she was never seen again after that point. And when was she officially reported missing?
She was reported missing on the 29th of June by her social worker.
So let's talk in a bit more detail about Carl Cooper then, Kate. Anything that might help the viewers that are watching today?
So Carl Cooper's in his 60s. From the photo that we have of him, he looks, a man in his 60s, but he would often wear a cap and quite trendy clothes and trainers, so he would look maybe a lot younger than 60s. He's got some missing teeth in the front of his mouth, and he would also speak with quite a heavy Jamaican accent. He lived in Catford, and we know that he had links to the Brixton area of London, and also would travel to Reading. He liked to travel around on buses. He was a plumber, handyman, so he may have done work at people's houses as sort of cash-in-hand work.
And when it comes to the murder of Fiona, you believe that he could have had help with this?
I think it's likely that he could have had help, yes, because Fiona was murdered in Carl Cooper's home address. I know that Carl doesn't drive, so I think it's likely that somebody may have helped him, potentially even inadvertently.
How can the viewers watching this morning help with this case?
So I'm really looking for any information, and that could be about anything. It could be something that people think is fairly insignificant, but that could be the missing piece for our investigation. I'm looking for people that may have employed Carl, as in a handyman or a plumber, in their address, or people that may have met him, associated with him. Or did you lend him your vehicle? Has he asked for a lift anywhere around that time period in June, so between the 20th and the 28th of June 2023. So it's a little time ago, but I'd ask people to just try and remember back to that time. And as I said, it may be that the person who might have helped him did so inadvertently, so they may not really have understood what they were doing. And I just want to reiterate that my aim is to find Fiona.
So that's what I'm here for.
Absolutely. And finally, there is a reward in connection to this case, isn't there?
Yes, that's right. The Met Police are offering up to £20,000 for information leading to the recovery of Fiona's remains.
Kate, thanks so much for taking the time to come into studio and tell us more about this.
Thank you.
As always, our contact details are below or can be found using our QR code, and the number to call is 08000 468 999.
We're now joined by Hazel from Advocacy After Fatal Domestic Abuse. Hazel, we just heard the devastation from Fiona's family there, and this is where your organisation comes in, because you can help people like that. You deal with this all the time.
Yes, unfortunately, we see these cases come through more than we should. And AFTRA are a charitable organisation, and we will help any family's friends who have been affected by a loss due to domestic abuse. And that could be a homicide, a suicide, or an unexplained death, and we can support them through that.
Yeah, such important work to do. So how do you actually do that? How can you support people going through such unimaginable pain as Fiona's family are?
Yeah, it's tragic, and these families have been through so much, and they are plunged into a world that they never expected to be in, a world of criminal justice, of domestic homicide reviews, of inquests. They don't know what that means, what it's going to do to their life, how they're going to cope with that. So we have a team of specialist advocates, and they will have an advocate who will take them through everything like that, step by step, make sure they understand what that's going to look like for that family, and make sure they know their rights and their options, so that they can make informed choices about, what happens to their family now. But the most important thing is that the family are integral to those processes, and that the family have a voice, and most importantly, the victim has a voice, because that was somebody's most precious person, loved one, and they need that voice.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it, Hazel? That's something that you can't stress enough, making sure that they have that voice and they are being listened to. And it's actually something the CEO of this charity is incredibly passionate about as well.
Yes, he is, and we have an absolutely wonderful CEO called Frank Milan. And unfortunately, Frank and his family found this in this position a good few years ago. His sister Julia and his nephew Will were killed by her estranged husband, and Frank found himself in that world. They didn't feel there was a lot of support, and certainly didn't feel at times that their voice was heard or their loved ones' voices were heard. So he set up AFTRA, and since then AFTRA have helped hundreds of families to cope with these processes, to cope what's coming at them, and to have some support alongside them during that.
Really is such important work. And something you touched on earlier, Hazel, actually, it's not just domestic homicides that you can help families with, is it? There's other types of death that you can really help them out.
Yes. Recently, in the last few years, we've seen a very significant increase in the number of suicide cases that are coming through to AFTRA. And these are people who have been abused, and because of that abuse, they have taken their own life. Because as we know, it greatly affects your mental health. It takes you to a place where you don't think you've got anywhere to go, you don't know what to do, you don't think you'll ever get out of it. And they end their life. And the important thing there as well is there is a crime behind them taking their life. There is abuse, there is coercive control. So it's really important that those families get the support around that to try and get acknowledgement of what's happened to their loved one.
And finally, Hazel, if anybody is watching this and has been affected by this, how can they reach out?
OK, so come to AFTRA on our website, aftra.org.uk. We have lots of information on there about the type of support and what we do. We also have a help phone number on there and a help email address on there, so you can use any of them to get in touch with us, and we will chat with you about what we can do for you to help you.
It's just such important work you do, so that's brilliant. And I'll tell you what we're going to do, Hazel, we're going to make sure we put a link on our website with all that information.
Wonderful,
as
that's
well.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, the teenagers in our next film went on a stealing spree for their own amusement. Little did they know it was the police that would end up having the last laugh.
These lads were doing it for fun and games, carrying a knife and stabbing people to take their things so they could video themselves for social media. Absolutely no regard whatsoever to any of their victims. We all really wanted to get these lads into custody.
1-6, both vehicles are stopped. One's off and running.
In January 2022, a violent gang of moped thieves went on a 2-day crime spree across Peterborough. Their target, fast food delivery riders.
So the first attack took place on the 8th of January, around 5:30 in the evening. The victim had just been to a fast food restaurant to pick up his order. Whilst he was attempting to deliver that order, the two suspects stepped out in front of the moped. One of them brandished a knife towards the victim's chest.
Give us the bike, man. Come on, take it. Get over there.
Understandably, fearing for his life, got off his moped and the two suspects jumped onto it and proceeded to drive away.
The shaken delivery driver called the police. When the stolen moped was found later set alight, police suspected it had been used in a joyride.
It very much was a case of, we're going to take your moped and there's no real reason behind it.
The following evening, at around 6:30, another delivery rider was dropping off a pizza less than a mile from the first robbery.
The three approach the victim on his moped, and at that point, one of them produces what's described as a large-handled green kitchen knife and brandishes that in his direction and says, "Give me the scooter." At that point, the victim tries to get away, but he's pushed off his moped. They take that and they disappear.
40 minutes later, the gang struck again. Now with 2 stolen mopeds, the suspects rode around the city recklessly.
The suspects were picked up on CCTV, driving on pedestrian areas, going the wrong way round on main roads, generally causing havoc.
The gang then approached a 4th delivery rider.
Grab it. Go for the bike, man.
Without any further warning, the suspect stabs the victim in the left thigh. He gets off his bike and at that point runs, understandably petrified, and the suspects follow him. But because he's got a newer moped, the keys go a further distance away from the bike and it cuts the engine.
The suspects left empty-handed before attempting 2 more robberies that evening.
At this point, obviously, we realised that a fairly prompt police response was needed.
A police helicopter was deployed to search for the gang. And at 8:47, they were spotted.
Pass 16, we're on the scene. Contact with those 2 mopeds.
We ended up managing to pick up the suspects using the thermal imaging cameras.
They're now off-road. They've taken to the footpath behind Wilton Close.
At that stage, they are just driving around Peterborough, down residential streets, down small wooded footpaths, in any attempt to get away. At some stage, you actually see them going the wrong way down a road, on the wrong side of the road, generally driving incredibly dangerously, driving in pedestrianised areas in the centre of town, clearly giving no thought to who or what damage they might cause.
What the gang did next astonished the police.
Pass 16, it appears one of the Pillion passengers possibly filming on their phone.
These lads were playing up for social media, potentially playing up for their friends, the opinions of their peers.
One Pillion passenger got off, taking a photograph of them. They're back on now.
I think at one point they obviously realised that they'd been pursued and viewed by the helicopter with the thermal imaging.
They've entered underneath the railway bridge and they're stationary.
So they attempt to hide.
When the gang realised their tactic wasn't working, they decided to split up.
16, both vehicles are stopped. One's off and running.
Police continue to track one suspect.
The helicopter followed him and maintained sight on him and managed to follow him to the back of a residential street where you see him discard the moped and make a run for the back of a garden fence.
Got one decal out garden hopping. And he's in the, trying to get the back door, trying to force a back. He's forced a back door in.
Officers soon followed before arresting their first suspect, Harvey Carr, at his home address.
This male's currently under arrest.
Then, something extraordinary happened.
There was a knock at the front door. It appeared to be another one of the suspects who was fairly shocked at seeing a police officer answering the front door.
He claimed he'd knocked on the door to ask for directions, but police weren't convinced.
Hey, boss, can I come in quickly? There's a man at the front. Good officers with him.
Yeah, we're with him. He's lost.
It didn't take too long for officers to actually realise, with communications from the helicopter and obviously other officers that had seen the lads on the mopeds driving around Peterborough City Centre, actually, that was one of our suspects.
Weston Haylock was arrested, but there was still one member of the gang on the run. A witness had noticed he had a distinctive tattoo on his cheek, and the following day, he was recognised on social media. Tyler Easterbrook was tracked down to the same house where his two accomplices had been arrested the night before.
We turned up and Easterbrook was found hiding under a piece of insulation within the roof cavity.
Once all three were in custody, detectives seized their phones and were amazed to find the gang had filmed and documented their entire crime spree.
We saw countless videos from various social media platforms that the three lads had made during the course of that evening, showing them setting fire to the mopeds, revving the mopeds that they'd stolen. You could see the police helicopter in the background of some of them. There was messages saying, shall we go and rob some peds?
18-year-old Weston Haylock was jailed for 2 years, 10 months. Harvey Carr, who was also 18, got 3 years, 2 months. And 19-year-old Tyler Easterbrook was sentenced to 6.5 years.
They didn't care at all who they hurt, any laws they broke, just complete disregard for anything other than their want to evidently go out and have a good time. And quite frankly, what has it achieved for them? Prison time.
Now, earlier, I spoke to DS Pemby Raya from the Met Police about a very difficult case of a non-recent sexual assault on a child. As you can imagine, this appeal covers some difficult themes, so please do bear that in mind. I started by asking her to talk us through what happened.
Yes, so we received a report last year from a very brave young boy who reported that back in the summer of 2016, when he was only 8 years old, he was seriously sexually assaulted. He's now 16. He's had the courage to come forward and report it to police, and he told us that in the summer of 2016, he was playing football on Mayors Green near his home address when he was approached by the suspect, who told him he had a son also interested in football and led him to his son, essentially, or what the victim thought he was doing. He's then taken him to a block of flats, and on the ground floor communal area, he's then proceeded to seriously sexually assault him.
Now, you mentioned it was Enfield, but do you know any more specifics about when and where this occurred?
So we don't have a date or time. As the victim was only 8, he can't recall those specifics. But we do know that he was initially approached on Mayor Green, and it was from there that the suspect has led him to a block of flats on Pentrith Avenue, as you can see there, and on the ground floor communal areas where he was seriously sexually assaulted. Now, the victim recalls the suspect suddenly fleeing from the scene as he believes that he was disturbed by a noise, and the victim was left within the flats. He's then left in tears and made his way back home.
It really is such a sad image, and the victim has given us this statement to convey that impact that this has had on him. He says, "When I got home, I felt as if I couldn't speak. I was in shock. I couldn't even explain what happened. I was overthinking how my parents would react, even though they are very supportive. I was worried that if I told them, they would think I had made a silly decision that had led up to the situation happening." It's so powerful hearing those words. What do you think it was that gave this young man the confidence to finally speak out?
He's been carrying this trauma for the past 8 years, and understandably, he found it difficult to talk about, but he's now found the confidence to confide in his parents and the police. And ultimately what he would like out of this is for the person responsible to be held accountable for what he's done to him. And ultimately, if anyone else is a victim of a similar crime or even victim to the same suspect, for them to now feel the courage to come forward and report it to the police.
It'd be so important, and we want to help with that. Now, this happened a while ago, this absolutely horrific crime. There's not a huge amount of information to go on, but what do you know about the suspect?
So we have no CCTV or images, but from the victim, he described him as a white older male. He had an English accent, was around 5'9" in height, but distinctively he had a thick grey-white beard and also a purple mark under his right eye, which could either be a birthmark or possibly a bruise. So that should really stand out about the suspect. And
also, he mentioned something about the boots as well, which may be a clue.
Yeah, it may be a clue in terms of what work he does or what he's doing in the area, but that's quite distinctive
What he
as well.
described as big, heavy-duty black boots. And as you say, that distinctive mark under his eye could be a bruise, could be a birthmark, but he certainly remembered that, didn't he? Now, this sounds difficult to solve, but we can and do get results from cases like this. Who do you want to hear from today?
I'm reaching out to the local community of Enfield, particularly around the area of Mayor Green. It was a busy summer, 2016. Rio Olympics were on. Leicester City had just won their first Premier League in history. So that may jog your memory in terms of when it was. If anyone can recall seeing this man, he did have a distinctive bruise or birthmark under his eye. You may know who he is. He may be local to the community. He may have done something similar to you or your child. If you do have any further information, we would encourage you to come forward with anything that you've got.
Thank you. If you know something about this awful case, no matter how small or irrelevant you think it might be, please do get in touch. All the ways to contact us are on the screen below. And if you are affected by any of the issues discussed here, then please visit Action Line, where you can find more information and contacts who can offer support.
Time now to visit a diner with a difference and hear how a charity set up to tackle knife crime is helping young people onto a more positive path.
Volunteering most definitely saved my life. If I hadn't gone into the voluntary sector, I'd probably be in prison or be dead. Grew up in Tower Hamlets. At the age of 13, my parents divorced and I moved to Hackney, and life was very different. I was angry because I didn't want my parents to divorce, of course. I was angry because I moved away from all my friends and everything that I knew, and this anger was inside of me that I didn't know how to control. Next thing I knew, I was a part of a gang, and it just escalated from there, to the point where at 16, my mother found weapons in my room. And it got really serious when, one, a friend of mine got killed, and two, another friend of mine went down, he got sent down. I had a light bulb moment, because that could be me. That could be me next. It was then when the family stepped in. They brought in a family friend, and he got me to join a voluntary organisation and started mentoring me and motivating me to look at my life in a different way. By having something other than the gang to look forward to, it made me rethink my direction. Chit Chat For You was set up by myself and my partner Larissa. Stoke-on-Trent has one of the highest levels of knife crime across the West Midlands. And for us, we wanted to try and do something about that. So we started to put on activities and projects to work with young people and their families and help them and provide them with mentoring and support that's going to help them take another direction. Like it says, it's in the name, Chit Chat, somewhere where they can talk about everything that they need.
I've got a family member that was involved in county lines. There was an involvement in drugs delivering. It was quite deep. scary. There was lots of services involved, but there wasn't really much support for me, and somewhere like this, Chit Chat, would have been absolutely amazing for me to come and offload, share my experience, realise that I wasn't the only one, and realising that it wasn't my fault. So I'm just so glad it's up and running now.
If you guys stay in the diner with Jay and then you guys can get all the tasters done, at the end of the day we'll come back and we'll have a debrief of how the day's gone. Last year in August we opened the Chit Chat for You Retro Gaming Diner. The purpose of the diner is to create youth work experience for young people. We teach them life skills, we teach them how to run their own business. They learn how to cook with the chefs.
Dip it in the sauce all the way in, make sure all the chicken is coated, and then you just place it back on the tray.
Something that they can be really, really proud of. And we want to teach them skills. We want to give them an alternative.
We as staff, we don't get paid. We're all volunteers. So every penny that we make from the diner gets fed back into the charity.
We became partners of Staffordshire Police and we work with them to complete knife sweeps. And we go into local parks and together we will sweep the parks, we will collect the knives, and then them knives go into the knife amnesty bins. It's a massive thing. What we want to do is build relationships between young people and police. At the minute, young people have got a very negative view of police, and we really want to change that. We brought the Control the Bleed kits in, and there's one in each town. We do train people on how to use the kits, and they're used to stop the bleeds until the ambulance comes. That in turn saves a life, and you know, even if we save one, we've done our job.
Next, we're building some new youth mentors. And this is a project where we're getting young people we've worked with in the past, and we're training them up now to have them become youth mentors.
Before I got involved in Chit Chat for You, I was involved in a lot of crime and around a lot of no good people. Selling drugs, gang crime, violence. Started at a young age, really. And then it led to me getting stabbed, led to me going in jail. So Chit Chat for You helped me load. It kind of mentored me and made me realise that I could help people that has been in my predicament and to get them off the roads. I've been there, I've done it, so I can help them, educate them and mentor them into a positive lifestyle role.
So far, the charity's helps thousands of young people. Our aim is to show them that they're part of a bigger community, a supportive community that's going to make sure that they feel safe and they feel supported always.
Great work there. Now we just have time for today's Wanted Faces. First, have you seen Ali, or Ali Alexander Gillen, is being recalled to prison after breaching the strict conditions of his licence. He's 31, 5'11", and described as having a medium build and short brown hair. Police say he has connections to Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire and also areas around Bristol. Or how about Daniel Challoner? Although he calls himself Danny and sometimes uses the surname Chan, he has also been recalled to prison after breaching the strict conditions related to his release. Also 31, he has a crescent-shaped scar on the right side of his chin, a Liverpudlian accent and links to Worcester and also Cheshire. Next, we have Zuhair Khalid Nazrat, although he goes by the name Lockman. Police in Manchester want to speak to him about alleged involvement in the conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. He's 27, with links to the Hume, Rusholme, Ardwick and Gorton areas of Manchester. And last is Jack Hunter, though he also uses the name Jack Byrne. He's been recalled to prison where he was serving an 11-year sentence for a series of aggravated burglaries. Now, this is an old photo of him, so he will look a little bit different now, but police say he's known in the St Helens area of Merseyside, as well as to Cheshire and Worcester, but they also say he may have left the country and possibly travelled to Spain. Please do get in touch if you know where any of these might be. Our contact details are on your screen down by the clock. Thank you for watching. Today you can catch us on iPlayer, remember, for up to 30 days after broadcast. And if you have been affected by the subjects raised today, help is available at BBC Action Line.
Tomorrow, a homophobic gang go on the rampage.
Over the course of 10 months, the men conspired, planned and committed robberies across Birmingham, resulting in over £100,000 being stolen. They committed appalling crimes that would have a lifelong impact on the victims.
We will see you for that and more tomorrow morning, same time, 10:45. Bye for now.
See you then.
Firearms officers serving West Yorkshire Police are arresting a man outside his home in Leeds. A woman has been stabbed. Forensic teams are dispatched to the scene. The stabbing is in a basement flat in Headingley. The victim has been rushed to hospital by medics to try and save her life. Forensic crime scene manager Jasmine White is briefed by the first officers to arrive on the scene.
So once we've arrived, ambulance have been called 6 and they've been doing CPR. So the female is laid essentially in the doorway at the front of the address. CPR is ongoing, extensive bleeding, which can be seen throughout the whole of the room. So whether she was found like that, whether she'd been moved in some capacity, I'm not sure.
Is it a shared flat?
Yes, it is. It's a one-bedroom flat. However, our victim has been staying in what is classified as the living room. So that's the front room as soon as you walk in, and you'll see a mattress to the left-hand side, and that's been her bedroom.
Police call the period straight after a serious crime the golden hour, the optimum time to gather forensic evidence.
That could be hers, I would think. Yeah. But it's been cut off her, hasn't it, I think? So I don't know if that's them. We found a T-shirt out here that I think it's highly likely to be the victim's. I can see it's been cut. I'm not sure whether it's been cut by paramedics or whether it's stab wounds and she was wearing it at the time.
The forensic team must gather as much evidence as possible before the weather washes away vital clues.
I'd quite like to get that recovered now.
Excellent. The victim rents a room in a shared flat.
We have got quite a lot of blood around. We've got sort of really thick congealed blood here over this side, and then we've got some more sort of what looks diluted blood on the sofa, and we've also got something that's going up the wall. It's hard for me to say what that might be. We've got quite a lot of footprints in blood, but we're mindful there's been an awful lot of people coming in here, paramedics, police. But obviously what we're interested in is the suspect's footprints, which is why we're using the stepping plates to protect the floor. We've got quite a lot of spatter on the floor as well, but that could be from the incident, it could be post-incident. There's a chair on the bed. The bed looks a bit dishevelled, but other than that, pretty much everything else looks neat and tidy. It's making me wonder, like, it's not like there's been a struggle to the point where everything's thrown everywhere and there's things knocked over. It's like all seems very concentrated to just this area. Yeah, I think this black thing is part of a bra and the other bit's behind me. I don't know where the rest of a bra is, unless it's on her.
The victim dies in hospital from a suspected stab wound.
The lady has been treated at the scene and then taken to Leeds General Infirmary, where she's been pronounced deceased.
This is now a murder investigation. The on-duty senior detective arrives at the scene.
Be careful. I mean, and it's so slippy. This is where all the congealed blood is. We've managed to document the blood, make an interpretation of the scene. It's quite tidy as a scene. Just gonna have a look in the kitchen. I've been asked to sort out a CSI for the deceased at hospital because she needs to be examined, photographed, forensically recovered for a forensic post-mortem.
The evidence gathered by forensics will inform the investigation by the homicide team.
There's no sign of blood or any disturbance in the kitchen, bathroom.
I was saying, other than
the bedroom.
Obviously this, everything else looks pretty tidy.
Doesn't seem like there's been a sign of a prolonged struggle.
No. Because I feel like there's quite a lot of things that could have been pulled over, knocked over, and there's just nothing.
Were the keys there already there?
When I came in, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. No
Chain.
sign of forced entry?
No.
This is evidence of like
a man's room. There's a mobile phone over here, isn't there?
One mobile phone is found at the scene. It belongs to the lodger in the room next door.
No, it was fine. Is that Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
The victim's phone is missing.
There's leads for an iPhone there, but I've not seen... There's just one in there, isn't there?
Yes.
So far, there's no sign of a crucial element. The murder weapon.
No, it's got vegetables on it.
From the victim's wounds, the team are focusing on the search for a large knife.
Working towards the hypothesis that it was a knife. That's what I needed to be looking for, but keeping an open mind if it was any other weapon.
Looks interesting. Be interested to know whether he's come with a knife, just to do that instant.
A woman in Leeds has been murdered in a vicious stabbing in her own home. The homicide and major inquiry team gathers for its first briefing, led by Detective Superintendent Emma Winfield.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us so quickly. So at 19:20 last night, I received a call notifying me of a potential murder, and awaiting further information, an injured party had been transported to LGI. So I went to the hospital to understand our victim and the injuries. Our victim is Harleen Kaur. She has long dark hair. There was matting of blood in her hair, but we couldn't see any injuries to her head. There was obviously medical intervention that had been stitched up, and then she had the stab wound to the top of her left breast. Her hands did have cuts, slice marks to both hands on her fingers, which I'd identify as self-defence marks. There has been some...
The forensic lead, Kate Whitehead, works alongside the detectives and brings them up to speed.
So, Kate, what's been done so far?
So far, they've been in and taken general photographs. There are some footwear marks in blood. Clothing, the T-shirt and the bra has been recovered. The iPhone in the rear bedroom has been swabbed and seized. No major disturbance elsewhere in the flat, and 2 knives were noted in the kitchen, but no obvious blood staining on those. The deceased, LGI, the victim, she has been photographed, clothing seized and bagged. As forensic practitioners, we do work and are employed by the police, but we have to remain impartial. We're there to find, recover and collect evidence that might prove somebody's involvement in the case, but it also might disprove their involvement in the case, so we have to be really unbiased.
The initial 999 call came in from the lodger who lives in the room next door to the victim.
So at 18:27, police were contacted by a witness, and he reports an ongoing fight at that address, and he lives in the shared house and is in the basement flat.
The police quickly rule out any relationship between the lodger and Harleen Kaur. But he names a potential suspect, and a firearms team is immediately dispatched to the suspect's flat.
The address linked to the suspect, which the suspect was arrested from, is the first floor flat. Firearms officers have gone in to clear that address. They've found a bloodied knife.
I intend to have senior CSI go back today, and myself will have a bit of a closer look at the blood staining. The suspect has been photographed, samples taken. We've also photographed the bottom of his footwear to see if it marries up with the footwear in the address.
The case has been assigned to Detective Inspector Amanda Sykes, who will now take over the investigation.
Thanks, guys. Right, we'll come back to you and we'll get you all passed out. Thank you very much.
With the suspect in custody, a full forensic search of his flat is ordered.
We're looking for blood transfer from the main scene. We're looking for a weapon, and the suggestion there could be a knife on a coffee table in there. Mobile phones, again, if we see those in the scene, they'll be recorded, swabbed and recovered, because we need to get the user's DNA off of them.
The area outside the flat is also meticulously searched.
Done? Yep. Nothing. Okay. Yeah, brilliant. Right. Excellent. Nothing in there, I take it? Nothing. Brilliant. Thanks, Mick. Cheers for that.
But it's all right with this bit here?
Yeah, we'll move our kit across.
Bloodstain knife, second knife.
So we've got the knife pack. It's like the shapes there fit those 2 knives. Yeah, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 knives there, 2 there, scissors there, scissors there.
Got them 3 pins through handles, isn't there? What we're saying.
So has he gone shopping for a new set of knives?
if we do recover a murder weapon, one of the most important things that we try and do is to link the victim and the suspect to that same weapon. If we can do that through DNA or fingerprints, that's ideal.
Well, if we get victim on the blade and him on the handle, I think
And a mobile phone.
Is that stained with it? Yeah, I think this phone looks like it's blood contaminated as well, so it might be worth not swabbing it. It might want a bit more work on it.
And then we've got a couple of destroyed mobile phones and there's some blood staining on the back of this one.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, John, I wonder if one of these is her phone.
We won't do any form of disruptive search. We'll leave that for follow-up. We'll just deal with what's in front of us.
Like a jigsaw puzzle.
I think that screen goes with that. That lot goes with that screen.
With key items recovered for testing in the lab, forensic blood pattern analysts arrive at the victim's flat.
The interpretation of the patterns of blood that are present at the crime scene can tell us a lot. There may be contact staining, which is where a person or an item has made contact with a surface. There might be blood drips and a trail, which can be followed. There might be splatter, which is suggestive of impact strikes into wet blood. There might be expirated blood, which is where somebody has breathed out when they've got blood in their chest cavity. So the presence of blood at the crime scene is quite basic, but it's all the interpretation that comes after that that help paints a picture and the story of what's gone off at that crime scene.
Laura Lewis is a forensic biologist specialising in blood spatter analysis.
So there's no blood anywhere except in the lounge. Apart from just on the door here, we've got some smear contact. So there's some drips of blood on the floor just there. Who they're from, I can't tell you till the DNA's come back. And then as you come across onto the arm of the sofa there, there's some runs of blood down the side. So it could be, for example, a bloodstained hand. But again, until I've got the DNA, I don't want to say who that is.
So I'm going to put 2 markers there.
Markers are used to highlight where blood is located on the crime scene photos. The arrows point to the direction of the blood spray.
On the sofa base on top of it, we've got lots of drips, possibly some arterial rain as well. There's further arterial going up the wall, and then we've got some more staining down on the right-hand side. That could be more arterial, but because there's a lot less stains in that pattern, I can't rule out it could also be cast off, so fluck off from someone's bloodstained hand. So again, I'd recommend sampling in case it's your offender with a hand injury. Really heavy contact staining on this central part of the sofa that's actually soaked through the leather, and it's also pooling slightly, and it's all over the bed sheet as well. So I think your deceased has been in contact with that part of the sofa, so probably kneeling or leant onto it when she's bleeding significantly. And then she's gone down onto the floor. In terms of on the floor, there's very little projected blood from someone struggling. There's not lots of spray or spatter around that would suggest that she's been struggling particularly, so I think when she's down, that's it. Then on the door, we've got the contact there, which is roughly knee height, and then there's contact on door handle. So if you actually position yourself sort of leaving, that's kind of where you would do that, and if you maybe grade your knee on the way out.
Okay.
So again, I'm sampling both of those because that could be, for example, suspect's clothing with victim's blood, and that could be suspect with a hand injury.
Over 3 days, 8 forensic experts have worked on the murder scene at the flat. Their findings are immediately forwarded to the homicide team.
Our suspect is Sapreet Singh Gandhi. He was arrested close to his home address. It's described as being covered in blood. He's got blood on the knee of his jeans. He's got a cut to his hand. He's got blood on his trainers. He's got blood to the rear of his jeans on his left pocket into the rear of his left shirt. And he was taken to Elland Road Police Station.
So we've submitted a number of items to the lab for analysis. The suspect's clothing, some clothing from the victim. The clothing is going to be submitted to the lab to see whether there is any presence of the victim's blood on that clothing, and the scientists at the lab will perhaps be able to provide some interpretation around the blood staining, which will assist in determining the sequence of events and also prove that the suspect had contact with the victim when she was bleeding.
At the suspect's flat, a second forensic team is assessing a potential murder weapon.
We've got a blood-stained knife on the coffee table. No discernible pattern in it. It's kind of smeared down the blade. Again, I haven't got measurements yet for you, but it looks about 3 centimetres in width, perhaps 20 in length.
But the knife isn't all they find.
Oh yes, that's the other thing. Yeah, there's handwritten notes. Now they're under one of the, well, actually under both knives. So when we recover them, we'll photograph those and then recover that as a collected item. We'll box that up. Ah, single-sided.
Police inquiries have resulted in revelations about the relationship between the suspect and the victim, Harleen.
The victim doesn't have any family in England, so she's got a brother, her mother and father in India. So they've been notified over telephone. Looking at our victim and suspect, inquiries identify that the suspect and our victim are husband and wife.
Harleen Kaur has been brutally murdered. Police are now building the case against the prime suspect, her estranged husband.
So that one doesn't have the same one next to it, but that's the... Satpreet Singh was previously married to Harleen's older sister in India. She died of a heart attack in India, we're told. He then went on to marry Harleen afterwards.
This was something that we looked into as a team, as a line of inquiry, to understand the nature of that relationship and how that relationship had come to a conclusion.
The police need to tread carefully as they inquire about the death of Harleen's older sister.
We asked the local police to give us some information in relation to the nature of that, and we also asked the family. They provided us with a death certificate, and that it became apparent that the death was by natural causes, so there was no suggestion of criminality, no lines of inquiry for the investigation team to follow. For me, it's a tragedy. We've now got a family that have lost both of their female adult children.
Satpreet Singh had one child with Harleen's older sister and since had another child with Harleen. Him and Harleen were raising both those children prior to them separating and Harleen's death.
Both children were with their grandparents in India when the murder happened.
They came to the UK for Harleen to study at university at Leeds. He came along with her as a husband. She did her studies, began working, and met a big group of friends at university and through work. And I think that's part of what Satpreet Singh has struggled with and what's made him quite angry towards her in this case. They'd separated, they were living separately, so Harleen got the flat at Headingley. Satpreet Singh had the flat at Kirkstall where he was living on his own.
Six months earlier, Harleen had rented the room less than a mile away from her estranged husband's flat.
Police were contacted by a witness, and he lives in the shared house, and he reports an ongoing domestic at that address.
On the night of the murder, the lodger was the first to alert the police.
He said the victim was shouting for help and screaming and crying. He's contacted the police concerned and he's made his way round the properties to the front, where he's waited for police to arrive.
Those first responders are quickly followed by firearms officers to the suspect's address.
Officers attended at the suspect's home address.
He was actually in a shop at the other side of the road when the officers got there, but from the CCTV at the shop, we knew that he became aware of the officer's presence. He's gone outside.
And the suspect approached the officers.
Almost straight away, he's made comments to the effect of, "I've killed my wife."
He was arrested on suspicion of Harleen's murder.
After the apparent confession on his arrest, Satpreet Singh Gandhi was taken for immediate interview by detectives.
I have to remind you that you are under caution, so you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you fail to mention, when questioned, something you later line in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
The caution at the start of the interview says you do not have to say anything, so they don't have to speak at all.
You can say nothing, some things, or talk to us. If you decide not to say anything, could you say no comment or no reply?
But the next part of the caution is really important, which is it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something you later line in court.
Or if you don't say anything today and this matter does go to court and then you give an explanation and the courts think it would have been reasonable to give that explanation now, then it could harm your defence and the court or jury could come to their own conclusions as to why you didn't give that explanation when interviewed by the police.
Usually what we do as an investigation team when we're interviewing people is do an initial interview, ask for an initial account from the suspect. We might then ask for a further interview where we give a little bit more information, a little bit more evidence, and then subsequently conduct what we call a challenge phase interview with the final evidence, the information that challenges the suspect's account that's been given.
So to make sure people may have to win one time or 300 times to custody, we have to make sure they understand the caution.
While Satpreet Singh Gandhi is being questioned about his wife's murder, his blood-stained clothes are being forensically analysed.
When you were arrested last night, you were brought into custody. The clothing that you had on was covered in blood. Whose blood is that?
No comment.
Initially, the scientist is looking at the trainer through the microscope to determine whether they can see any blood staining on the trainer and use a specialised light source to help visualise any small or fine stains.
The examinations are carried out in a sterile environment.
The scientists will lay the clothing out all together as if it was on a person, so the polo shirt at the top, the jeans, and then the trainers towards the bottom, so that they can look at them all together and the distribution of blood over all items of the clothing to help with their interpretation. Just pulling the pockets out to see whether there's any blood staining on the insides of the pockets. We can get a DNA result from the blood, and then the scientist has to interpret that and compare it to the profiles from the suspect and the victim.
So there's been notes left which were found in the address of our suspect about how coming to the UK has affected the suspect's life, how things started to go wrong, how the victim was making friends with males and females and new groups, how his thoughts have deteriorated, that she was partying. He will say that he turned to drink and that she wasn't spending time with him.
Now tell me about Harleen Gandhi.
No comment.
Tell me about the person. What sort of person was she?
No comment.
The suspect's family in India have come forward with concerns about his mental health. He's been sending them messages on WhatsApp.
A further call comes in at 19:51, and this is from a family friend of the suspect, and the suspect's family who are in India have contacted him in WhatsApp saying that the suspect's raising concerns that he wants to leave the world and had a fight with his wife.
The handwritten notes and the WhatsApp messages now form a key part of the police evidence.
This is a typed document that's sent on a family WhatsApp group prior to his arrest. Family have sent it to friends in England who've given it to us. He says, my wife, Harleen Kaur, showed me her real face, what a bitch she is. After going UK, she started hiding things with me.
What's your relationship with Harleen been like?
No comment.
Has it been a loving relationship?
No comment.
Have you had fallouts with her?
When he did.
He's seen that as her being secretive and him, I think, losing that control that he thought he had on her.
Were you obsessed with Harleen?
No comment.
It's just a young lady enjoying going out with different people, but he's seen that as almost like a slur on him, and that it's something he needs to take control of.
Do you hate her?
No comments.
It was shocking at first to get a no comment. He was interviewed on 3 occasions, quite lengthy interviews, but he's not made any comment. Tell me what happened. Because you know what happened in that address, because you were present. Tell me what happened.
No comments.
No, he's given us no explanation as to why this has happened.
Though the suspect seemed to admit his guilt on arrest, he still hasn't been charged. A conviction should mean a life sentence. But how long the killer serves in prison depends on whether the murder was premeditated. Detectives are now exploring any evidence that the suspect has intended to kill his wife.
What has been your reason for going there?
No comment.
We want the maximum sentence for him. He has taken someone's life. If his team try and go down a route of saying something to try and get a lesser sentence, what we try and do is put all our evidence together and show that this wasn't a one-off, this was premeditated, this was planned. Have you arrived there calm, ready to chat?
No comments.
Have you arrived there worked up and ready to have an argument with her?
No comments.
While the suspect continues to say no comment in interviews, a specialist team known as Pulsar begin detailed searches at both the crime scene and at the suspect's flat.
It's the only thing that we're in the bin and water.
Get the CS started, double check it.
One of the search team is Exhibits Officer DC Rachel Kennedy.
We are still missing one knife. So that packet, is it the medium one we're missing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not unusual for searches like this to have hundreds of exhibits and take days to complete.
I know you said laptops are on the list. It's an Apple MacBook. Right.
We've got a roll of little ones, I've taken out of it.
That should be.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. One of the most important things when you're dealing with exhibits is being exact. So what you've got, and particularly where it's been seized from. If we find passport or ID cards from India, particularly the suspect and the victim, they might help us. And the other one was, if you do happen to find any paperwork that looks like he's trying to get things in order, anything to do with life insurance or anything like that, please.
This accurate recording of items found during the search could prove crucial at trial.
Say, for example, you had some CCTV of an offender running behind a car, and behind that car you found a knife, then, you know, it's really important to say where the exhibit was found, and it may link in with other evidence, other corroborative evidence that is provided to the investigation. So yeah, so that was on top shelf. So there was
What
these.
do you think that is? Is that a visa cut? Right, okay, so that needs to come separately. I can get to.
Yeah, blood stain.
So just anything with any potential blood staining on it then?
The knife was located at the address with blood on the blade. Can you tell me about that knife?
No worries.
How did that knife get into your flat?
No worries.
Will you be forensically linked to that knife and taken by your fingerprints or DNA?
No worries.
Will the blood on that knife be that of Arlene's?
No worries.
To pursue a charge of murder, the police must establish the killing was premeditated. They're reviewing the suspect's WhatsApp messages to gain an insight into his state of mind.
Well, it's almost like a diary entry of a summary of what he perceives him and Harleen have gone through. It's just full of emotion and kind of jumps about from topic to topic. Clearly written with some emotion and some anger in parts of it as well. It says she had gone in a world where she just didn't want to listen to me and do whatever she wanted. And again, that seems to be no longer obeying him. And I think that's a big motive for him doing what he's done.
Well, did Arlene change? Did her attitude change? Did her way feelings towards you change in that time?
No comments.
He says in July 2021, I hacked her mobile for the first time. I thought that would be really important in the sentencing, that he's hacked her phone and that kind of domestic element of control and coercion. I found that she was chatting with her male friend and the chats were not normal, and he sees this chats with a male friend as being something inappropriate.
Has Arlene started seeing anybody else?
No comments.
And this is all kind of building up a picture of how he saw himself losing his grip on Harleen and that she was moving on from him. He says we started some conversation. She told me that she's going to live with her friends now, and she started to pack her bags.
Do you currently live together?
No worries.
I was drunk and just wanted to stop her from going. I pushed her and held her tightly, but only to stop her. Never had any intention of beating her. I just wanted to stop her.
Has your attitude towards Arlene changed?
No worries.
If so, why has that changed?
No worries.
What happened to change any feelings that you had for each other?
So we've kind of confirmed there's been some element of previous domestic physical violence between them. In the defendant's own words, that there's been some physical altercation, but obviously that is the start of physical domestic violence against Harleen that's escalated to what we've ended in.
I've got his red rucksack. Here is his rucksack.
Oh, is it? Pinky red will do. Right, okay. I'll give Kate a ring and tell her what we got.
The suspect's flat search has revealed more key evidence.
It's like a deep pink, very dark blue rucksack just on the sofa. I'm guessing that'll be the one that you're after.
AFM Kate Whitehead relays this back to the investigation team.
And recovered the rucksack and a metal water bottle, which was blood-stained. Within the rucksack, blood-stained clothing, a T-shirt. I'm not sure that it's the T-shirt that he's had on, but he may have put the knife into the rucksack, and that may be how that T-shirt has got blood-stained.
Oh, 20 centimetres of blade.
She's given the cause of death, as we suspected, a stab wound to the chest. She describes it as being a single stab wound, but an irregular wound that appears to show some sort of sawing action once the knife was in.
You inflicted that stab wound?
No comments.
All I'm going to say is that there's one stab wound, however, there's numerous insertions inside, so which means the knife has been pulled in and out a number of times. Back into the hole. Tell me how that's come to be.
No comments.
She describes multiple stab tracks in the lung, one that's penetrated the back of the left chest cavity, almost reaching the surface of the skin on her back.
Yes, a knife of at least 15 centimetres would have to have caused that injury. Have you taken a knife with you and inflicted that injury to her?
No comments.
The only other injuries that the deceased had were defensive sharp force incise wounds to her left fingers and one to her right thumb.
What happened for an argument to lead to Arlene suffering that major injury that resulted in her death?
No comments.
Went back after the PM results, talked to him about the incident. Thing. He got quite emotional, didn't it, on that one? As if he almost wanted to talk, just carried on. No comment. As she tried to grab the knife from yourself.
No comments.
Grab it, pull it out of her chest, and this is how there's numerous insertions into it because you've tried to push it back in.
While the interviews continue, the first evidence emerges to confirm the killing was premeditated. Witness accounts suggest Gandhi had been stalking Harleen.
A member of the public raised concerns about a male described as a male wearing a turban, smartly dressed, hanging around by the bins and the bushes at Victoria Road, and is described to have a red rucksack. I believe this to be our suspect. I believe that he's potentially been watching our victims' movements over the past week.
In the investigation into the murder of Harleen Kaur, detectives are working to establish that her killing was premeditated. It's now become their key focus.
We have three what we'll class as key witnesses who have come forward. So our offence took place on Monday the 5th, so Thursday the 1st, before a witness who lives nearby to the victim's address contacted us saying that, and had been surprised to see a male stood in the bottom of her garden looking from the bushes across the road. He would have had sight on the victim's home address. She thought it was quite strange, and she eventually contacted the police to just say there's a suspicious male, but within a few minutes after he walked away, and she describes him as an Asian male with a black turban and 30 to 40 years of age. We then go on to the Friday, the 2nd, where yet again we have a witness who lives nearby stating that she saw in the mid-afternoon a male stood outside a garden. Once again, she described this male as being of Asian descent, having a turban, but also of note, having a red rucksack on his back. Then on the Saturday, we've had another witness saying that she'd come home early evening when she's been surprised to see a male at the bottom of the garden by her bins, crouching down and looking through the bushes.
Detectives now search through hundreds of hours of CCTV to verify the witnesses' claims.
Because one of our theories at the moment is that Satpreet Singh might have been stalking her for some time before he committed the offence.
More new evidence comes to light when the knife recovered from the suspect's home leads detectives to a local supermarket.
Once he was arrested and we got into his flat, within the flat was an open packet of knives that was packaged with Asda logo on it.
The murder weapon was a part of that set, and as a result of the inquiries, we've gone to the nearest supermarket and we've established that that set was bought from there, and we've got CCTV footage of him going into the Asda store, even speaking to a member of staff, and the staff directing him to where the knives were located on the aisles. We know that on that day he purchased these knives. He also bought some crisps and he also bought some vodka.
Satpreet Singh Gandhi purchased those knives on the 28th of August, which is some 8 days before the murder.
It wasn't just a fit of rage. He'd been planning this for quite some time.
Now the digital forensics team track the suspect's mobile and his movements via the phone network.
What we were able to determine is that Satpreet Singh's mobile phone was pinging on a mast near to Harleen's flat on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th of September, which we think is relevant based on what's happened on the 5th of September.
The digital forensics strengthen the case that Harleen's murder was premeditated.
It provides us with lines of investigation. It provides us with a story of events, of movements, both the victim's movements as well as the suspect's movements. So what we can say is that the days prior to the 5th, we have got Satpreet Singh Gandhi in the area around Harleen's flat, and we would say watching Harleen's flat.
Detectives now begin to create an accurate timeline of each day leading up to the murder.
It's always very important to come back, visit the scene, familiarise yourself with the scene, because it's a massive part of the investigation.
From phone data on the 3rd, we've identified that Satpreet Singh's phone is hitting a mast near to Harleen's flat from 9 p.m. onwards on the 3rd of September. So what we've done is we've reviewed CCTV footage.
Our CCTV is mainly from this building, and we catch them on our footage.
And at 21:37 hours, we have captured Satpreet Singh stood directly outside Harleen's flat.
He goes down the steps and comes back out. My view is that he's probably known that there's nobody there, and he walks back towards these bins, and for a couple of seconds he stops.
So what we've got is Satpreet Singh here, entering the threshold towards Harleen's property. And if you look what's in his right hand, you'll see a shining object.
With the key CCTV from 2 days before the killing, the team now concentrates its efforts to events on the day of the murder.
So here he is, leaving his flat. And what he does is he does come across the road and makes his way into the Premier store. And what he'll do is he'll purchase some Skittles, and you will clearly see him in possession of the rucksack on his back. We believe in the bag he's carrying the weapons that he's used in the attack. And then he'll make his way back onto Greenhow Road. Only this time, he has booked a taxi to take him back up to the location where Harleen lives. So this footage, this shows Satpreet Singh turning up in this taxi. And this is at 15:41 hours. And he's got with him his rucksack in his hand. But the fact that he's in the area once again, hours before the incident occurs, it paints a picture of what's about to unfold, really.
Harleen Kaur has been killed by her estranged husband. Police must prove it was premeditated in order to charge him with murder and try to secure a life sentence. More CCTV of Gandhi lying in wait near the victim's home has emerged.
He's just walking around, a lot of pacing, so there's a lot of coming to the side, looking over to see if anyone's there, coming back out of eye line from the flat, coming back to this side. I think that's his main focus, is the address. If anybody's there, if she's there, he's always got a view from whichever position he's at.
The evidence is then put to the accused.
Is that you, Satpreet?
No.
What are you doing at 15:44 under the 5th?
Nothing.
We then came next door to the cafe, and what we found there was that he was hanging a lot in this decking area and around this driveway area. Are you watching that address?
No comment.
It gave him a prime location for viewing. And once again, anybody who left that flat, came out, would not see him sat up in the decking area, but he had a perfect view of that address. On the night of the murder, this is where he sat just prior to picking up his bag and walking across. You've now crossed over. Where are you going? See him come down these steps, he crosses this road, he's got his red rucksack with him, he's coming across here, we see him on the footage go down the steps, out of sight, where we lose him on CCTV. You go down them steps, into that address, tell me what happens. He's not made any comment, just he has shown up and cried on a few aspects of the questioning. We've also spoke about a call made to the victim's family in India where his children are staying. You don't have any contact with your children, do you? Unless it's phone through a specific person, that be correct?
No comments.
How does that make you feel, not having contact with your children? When we spoke about that issue, he's become very upset and asked for a break to compose himself, and had to take him 10 minutes to compose himself before we carried on the interview.
To talk to my solicitor.
Yeah, right. The time is 16:09 and we're going to pause the interview for you to have a chat with your solicitor. And then when we introduced witness statements, a couple of days prior to that, took him by surprise. He looked at his solicitor a couple of times around that and looked a bit like shocked. And I asked him about the rucksack. I said, we look at 2-3 days before, are we always going to see you walking with a rucksack? It took him quite a while before he answered No comment on that one. You still got your distinctive rucksack with you. What's in the rucksack at that time?
No comment.
Do you always carry a rucksack?
No comment.
So what do you carry in your rucksack?
No comment.
Yeah, it definitely feels like he's thought he's going to do this for some time. He's gone and he's done various recce's, hasn't he?
The witness statements and CCTV corroborate the police theory that Satpreet Singh Gandhi had been stalking Harleen for days before the murder.
He's gone and done what he's done to her, and then potentially has intended to harm himself, but for whatever reason hasn't done so.
While Gandhi continues to be questioned, the forensic analysis of the clothes he was arrested in returned key findings in blood and DNA.
The scientist examined the T-shirt that we'd submitted from the victim's address. In the scientist's opinion, this damage can be considered to correspond to the injuries sustained to the victim's left breast, i.e., she was wearing this T-shirt when she was stabbed. And the forensic analysis of the suspect's clothing and the scientist's report for the blue short-sleeved shirt that he was wearing when he arrived in custody. On the centre front, there are numerous heavy spots of blood, which in her opinion relate to arterial spray. And also of note, there were some very fine spots of blood on the chest area, which in her opinion appeared to have been exhaled onto the shirt. The DNA profile obtained from the shirt matches that of the victim. In the scientist's opinion, the overall distribution of blood staining present on the trainers is in keeping with the victim's body having come into contact with the right trainer while she was injured and bleeding. Also, that after she had gone down to the ground, the presence of spots of blood on the midsoles could be explained by the suspect having straddled her body and or moved her around whilst she was exhaling blood. Taken together, in the scientist's opinion, the overall distribution of blood staining present on the suspect's clothing and footwear, which places him in a prolonged and dynamic interaction with the victim after she had sustained her injuries. The evidence is showing that he was present with the victim while she was injured and bleeding. If you've got somebody's arterial spray or somebody's exhaled blood on your shoes and clothing, then you were with them at the time that they were still alive and bleeding because their heart is still pumping, they're still breathing. So that is incriminating.
Any time did you try to give first aid to her?
No comments.
With evidence against him overwhelming, Satpreet Singh Gandhi finally admits to murdering his wife. And detectives are hopeful a life sentence could be handed down by the court.
During the charging process, I did notice that his legs were shaking and quivering and his body buckled of times, which plays the gravity of what he's being charged with. So I'd have to position myself closer to him because at one point I thought he was going to faint, but he managed to compose himself and rest himself against the wall in the custody area. Sometimes it's the gravity of having that charge read out to you and knowing that when you've been charged with murder, that's overwhelmed him.
It's been 2 months since the murder of Harleen Kaur. With an admission of guilt, there'll be no full trial. But the court must now decide Gandhi's sentence. Without proof of an intention to kill, it could be substantially reduced.
We think the intent is that he's there, he's planned this, he's gone, and he's not found the right occasion on the nights before. And then we think on the night of the offence, she's present, and he's gone in and he's committed the offence.
Satpreet Singh Gandhi has confessed to the brutal killing of his estranged wife, Harleen Kaur. They had 2 children together. They are now being raised by their grandparents. The family live in India, but they have provided an impact statement explaining how Harleen's murder has affected them.
So I've got the victim personal statement from the brother of Harleen, who was murdered. These were only read in court after conviction to assist the judge with sentencing. Harleen had laughter that would bounce off the walls and resonate with everyone. She brought light into the darkest of rooms with just a single cheeky smile, and her eyes always had the most beautiful twinkle to them. Now everything just seems darkened and dull without her. Her parents have to take care and grow both their daughter's children in their old age. Every night I and the children and my parents have nightmares of what you did, of how you hurt her, how scared she must have felt in those final moments, how she probably died feeling like she was alone or unloved. You have traumatised so many of us. Her children are not able to sleep, study, have gone into depression, and always say, I want to see my mother and talk to her. How can Dad do this to our mother? Doesn't he love her and us? We know you are guilty for murder. This is something we knew the whole time. But by pleading guilty so close to your trial, you're only looking to reduce your sentence. Your hand has clearly been forced through the painstaking investigation and collection of evidence conducted by dedicated police officers. Marriage is about love and affection, which Harleen gave you, and you were not worthy of it, and she wanted a divorce. First time she thought for herself, and you killed her. She's not a property. If you don't want, don't like, or don't listen, you destroy. She was a human being, and not a monster like you. You will never be forgiven. What you have done to her will never be forgotten.
It's very impactful. A victim impact statement gives the judge who's sentencing the ability to get into the mind of the victim's family and the impact that it's had on them, not just at the time of the offence, but the ongoing impact.
It's tragic, it's hard not to be moved when you read the words from Harleen's brother on behalf of the family. And I think as a husband and as a dad, it's really difficult to hear, and you kind of, I think, put yourself in that person's shoes and think, what if it were me having to write that? So it is harrowing, but again, it's the reason why I think the team are also driven to do the jobs and get the right results for the victims and the families. How are the family feeling about today?
I think they're looking forward to getting some closure, getting to find out exactly what he's going to get. Custodial time.
Today, the judge will decide how long Satpreet Singh Gandhi will spend in prison.
What's your thought on how it'll go?
Obviously, prosecution will get a chance to put their points across, and I think we're looking at the starting point for bringing a knife to the scene is going to be 25 years. I think there's a lot of aggravating features with the domestic violence and the control, the coercion, and sort of the stalking and the pre-planning before. But let's see what the judge thinks.
All the investigators can do now is wait.
But it's important that we've gathered further evidence. Things like bringing the weapon to the scene, we recovered the knife. All those hours of looking through the CCTV to catch him stalking her. All those little things make a real significant difference to the sentence and to the starting point of the sentence. But the important thing, we're telling the story of Harleen and how she lived the last few months of her life.
The judge gives his decision. Satpreet Singh Gandhi is sentenced to 23 years and 4 months for the murder of Harleen Kaur.
So the judge sort of summed up the case quite well. He set the starting point at 25 years. The aggravating features put it up, and then he got a 6th off credit for a guilty plea, so it went back down and ended up at 23 years and 4 months. Which I think is a fair sentence. He's not coming out for a long time.
The family over in India, they couldn't make it for the trials, but they were on a video link, so basically they got to see the court and hear what was being said. As soon as it finished in the courtroom, I ran the family and spoke to them to explain to them exactly what had gone on.
Whatever sentence they get, it doesn't reflect the value of the life that's lost. We always find that with these cases, that whatever the number of years, it doesn't reflect the value of that person's life.
It's really hard because you think about the victim and her family. It's really hard to say, oh, it's a good result for our team, because somebody dying and being murdered is never a good result.
Harleen had wanted freedom from her stifling marriage, but her killer had wanted to control her.
The police take domestic abuse incredibly seriously. It has a huge impact on victims' families, and on the community as a whole. This is an incredibly serious case. A woman sadly lost her life as a result of domestic abuse and domestic violence. Myself and my team have worked as hard as we possibly can to get the best result and best outcome for the victim, her family, and her children.
Next time, there's been an attempted murder at a convenience store in Yorkshire.
Yes, I have got a CSI available.
You can actually see the shot on that.
Shotguns are very lethal.
The offence is attempt murder.
He's been very fortunate to survive this. We're now tracking a gentleman on a mountain bike.
So we need to make sure we brief search teams as well.
One thing that we get there is gunshot residue.
Have you already had a shotgun in your possession?
He's actually been using firearms.
The evidence that we collect can be key to an investigation.
When you look at the evidence, there is sufficient for us to put it before a jury to decide whether the defendant is guilty.
Catch all that brand new next Monday at 9. And if you or someone you know has been affected by any of the issues raised in tonight's programme, please go to channel5.com/helplines for information and support. Accused of serious crimes, hear real stories of people facing trial and guilty or innocent. Streaming now on My5. Next, 999 Police Hour of Duty.
Hôm nay xin gửi tới các bạn bài hát Nơi đảo xa, được hát bởi ca sĩ Trọng Tấn. Đây là hát của tôi. Nơi anh đến là biển xa, nơi anh đến ngoài đảo xa, từ mảnh đất quê ta giữa đại dương mang tình thương quê nhà. Đây Trường Sa, kia Hoàng Sa, ngàn bao tố phong ba vượt qua. Lướt sóng trên con tàu mang tín hiệu trên đất liền, mắt em nhìn theo con tàu đi xa mãi. Giữa nơi biển khơi đang nở rộ ngàn bông hoa san hô, cánh hoa đỏ thắm bao hy vọng anh gửi về tặng em. Ơi ánh mắt em yêu như biển xanh, như trời xanh trong nắng mới, nhớ cả dáng hình em mùa gặt nắng đôi vai. Sóng du mối tình đời thủy thủ càng thêm vui. Đây con tàu xa khơi, đây con tàu xa khơi. Vầng trăng sáng trên biển xa, vầng trăng sáng ngoài đảo xa, và nghe như tiếng thơ nhà giữa lòng ta bao lời ca quê nhà. Đây Trường Sa, kia Hoàng Sa, quần đảo tím hiên ngang thiên hùng ca ngời xa. vang. Tháng năm con tàu quen sóng ca quen gió biển, nước ra màu nắng từ giòn thêm anh thèm. Cánh chim hải âu buồn mùa về cùng anh vui ra khơi, cánh hoa biển trắng là kỷ niệm anh gửi về tặng em. Đây súng vác trên vai trong đầu núi soi hình anh đang đứng đó, nhắn về đất liền cánh buồm chờ đầy tin yêu. Sóng rung tình người thủy thủ càng thêm yêu. Đây con tàu xa khơi, đây con tàu xa khơi. Ơi ánh mắt em yêu như biển xanh, như trời xanh trong nắng mới. Nhớ cả dáng hình em mùa gặt nắng đôi vai. Sóng dù mối tình đời thủy thủ càng thêm vui. Đây con tàu xa khơi, đây con tàu xa khơi, đây con tàu xa khơi.